red button.
Sorry. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and the first order of business, I'd like to welcome everybody here, and we have a sign-in sheet. If everybody would sign in, we'd appreciate it. And next order of business, we're going to have a pledge of allegiance to the flag led by the director.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, the next order of business is have Suzanne give a roll call of the commissioners. Present.
Yes, here.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Here.
Commissioner Howell?
Here.
Commissioner Coburn?
Commissioner Coburn is excused. He's out of the country.
Commissioner McBeth?
Here.
Commissioner Morai?
Here.
Commissioner Rainey?
Here.
Commissioner Wallace?
Here.
Thank you. We'll have a roll call of the County Advisory Board members present. If you just stand up and give your name so loud so Suzanne can get them down.
Ken Wellington, Elko County. Paul Dixon, Clark County.
Gil Yoder, Carson City. Bracken Flowers, Washington County. Tom Casanelli, Humboldt County.
Okay, welcome again. Did you get those, Suzanne? Thank you. The next item of business is approval of the agenda. I'd like to, I got something I'd like to add to it if there's any, but I'll ask any commissioner if they have anything they want to add to that, any change or anything. Hearing none, I'd like to have recognition of the Boating Officer of the Year, and I'll call, I'd like to add that and have Rob do a presentation on that. Is that okay? Go ahead and proceed, Rob.
Good morning. For the record, Rob Bonamici, Chief Game Warden. It's an honor today to have one of our game wardens here with us that has done, as many of our game wardens do statewide, an outstanding job. But Karen has gone above and beyond that. Karen Weldon has been nominated for Boating Officer of the Year. And received it. This will be the third time in her career since she started in 1995. She does an outstanding job for us, makes thousands and thousands of boating contacts, as well as checking fishermen and hunters, and does them with, I can't even recall a complaint we've had on her. You know, the arresting people, the drunks, she does it all. And then she goes even above and beyond that with our FTO program, Field Training Officers. We're actually trying to clone her. So she trains our new officers that come into our agency and trains them in the field, is responsible for that. She kind of heads up that program. We have other FTO officers, but she's always taken the lead on that and just done an outstanding job for us. So with that, I'd like to present to Karen Boating Law Enforcement Officer of the Year Award. And it reads, be it known that Karen Weldon is hereby awarded the Nevada Boating Law Enforcement Officer of the Year Award in recognition of outstanding public service, unmatched professionalism in marine law enforcement, and personal commitment to ensuring safe and enjoyable recreational boating. And that comes from the Western States Boating Law Administrators. So that's a West-wide recognition. Karen?
Bring her up to the microphone.
Yes, sir, thank you.
We appreciate, the department appreciates what you're doing to have an employee like you.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to receive this, and all the voting officers, they're equally able to, I mean, they all deserve this award, not just me, because it's a team effort, but I feel honored to receive it, so thank you.
Thank you. Did we have a motion to approve the agenda then, Commissioner Rain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to approve the agenda as presented and as amended earlier this week.
Second for that? Second by Commissioner Capurro. All for the motion, aye? Aye. Ayes have it, thank you. Next item of business is member items and announcements. Commissioners, any commissioner have any announcement or items they want to?
Mr. Chairman, I got a question. Are we filming today? Yes. We are filming? My grandkids want to know what channel I'm going to be on.
For the record, Ken Mayer, Director of Vendal. Like the last time, what we have to do is we take the actual tapes, send them to a vendor, and then they break it into a web acceptable format. So this will be on the web.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Is that the cameras taking our backs up here?
I'm not quite sure where all the cameras are, but
Okay. Any other Commissioner Cavan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a couple of items. First of all, we did receive at least I did receive the commission guidebook in the mail, and I haven't had time to, we just got it last week. Haven't had time to go through it, but I wanted to thank staff for putting that together. I think it'll be a good resource for everyone involved, the commission and staff and crew. So thanks for bringing that out and getting it customized to Nevada, putting the laws and that sort of thing in.
and Commissioner Cavan, Ken Mayer again. We do have the copies from the MAT team, you know, the raw version, if anybody wants that. But what we've done is we took that and we added the Nevada laws to it. So they're virtually the same with all the Nevada stuff in it, which you got. So.
Right. It's pressed. And then I had a question, and maybe it's for Ken. I had a big email problem the last month. It took me about 3 weeks to get the thing solved, between thinking we could fix the computer ourselves and all of that sort of thing, dealing with our provider. And ultimately, I ended up missing out on about 3 weeks of email before I ended up having to, you know, take the thing in and getting it de-virusized. But I was wondering if there's, and not having an ID department in the Cavan household, you know, I don't have things backed up. I lost an entire year of emails, all my archives, all of that stuff. So I was wondering if at some point we could maybe get emails for the commission through the state system. Is that something that is possible, or we can look into, or
Well, yeah, Ken Mayer for the record. Yes, we have looked into that. Unfortunately, DoIT will not allow non-state employees, even though that you're on the commission, to have an email on the backbone, the state backbone. We tried 2 different times to get that done. When Commissioner Lent came on the commission, he asked us about that. So we could certainly inquire again, but the answer's been no. So
is that information technology? Is that who you're
yes,
talking about?
I'm sorry. Yeah, DoIT. I don't know why they call it DoIT, because most of the time
Department
they
of
can't do
Information.
it. But
IT.
So is that, that's outside the division? That's a state?
They control all of the email and
Agency.
and whatnot. If we do anything web-wise, we got to go through DoIT as well, through the state backbone. So,
I don't know, maybe other commissioners don't care about that, but after experiencing this problem, and I can see where it'd be at least helpful in my personal
yeah,
perspective.
sorry about that. We tried, actually, in earnest.
Okay.
Ms. Mayor, could you maybe draft a letter for my signature, and we'll request it in writing, and because technically we're state employees, and I'd like to maybe address it formally in a letter to them, to the right people.
Sure, we can do that. Suzanne, do you have any additional information?
Just the same as what you said.
Yeah.
Try another, a letter calling.
And let's direct a letter, and I'll sign it and make it formal to them, because, you know, technically we're state employees for other things. We should be able to get an email address for the commissioners. I'll be glad to sign it, and you give me who it goes to, and,
Oh, we can send it to the director. Let's
yeah.
do it. And that's where I would.
And maybe they make
I've talked-
exceptions or something, but I think the commissioners, the commissioners express that to me, and I've mentioned it several times, so. Does any commissioner have any problem with that? Okay. Let's do that for my signature, and we'll send it to the director. Is that okay, Commissioner Cavan?
Sure, that's fine. And I had one other thing.
Okay.
Just trying to get heads up on the upcoming legislative year. It seems like it's a long ways away, but last year, I think we may have missed the boat. I don't know exactly what happened, but maybe at our February meeting, we could get an update from staff of internal bill drafts that you guys are anticipating, so that we have a heads up on it. I think there was a little confusion last year. Maybe we just didn't communicate. But
Certainly, great suggestion. We had the whole management team got away, and one of the agenda items was to list legislative ideas. So we have a raw list that we need to go through and edit, but when we get that edited up, we'll certainly relay that to you and tell you what we're thinking about doing.
great, thanks, Ken.
And then then you guys could add things to that list, obviously.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other commissioners got any emergent items they want to discuss? Hearing none. Oh, Commissioner Rain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just had some questions about an article that's in the Nevada Hunt book, specifically on the Nevada Bighorns on the Rise, and I was just wondering if I could get some, this references some support material to give evidence that bighorn sheep numbered close to 30,000 in Nevada. It's an article in here, and if there's some support material, some history that shows this to be true, I would just appreciate if I could get a copy of any of that, whatever. This book, page 6, 7 goes on. Yeah, 6, 7. The scientific basis for that document, whatever you got, would appreciate it. Thank you.
It's written by Aaron Meyer.
Yeah.
Who's that?
He's on our information education staff.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know everybody. Any other commissioner has any items they want to bring up? Hearing none, I'll go to the next item of business, with County Advisory Board, Managed Wildlife member items. Anybody from a county board wanted to bring anything up? This is the time.
Good morning, Ken Wellington from Elko County. I was approached by Mr. Laughlin, Pat Laughlin, regarding the heritage projects and the problems he's having trying to get these off the ground. He had concern with the department, and when I went back and checked my notes in the past minutes, I found that this commission had directed the Predator Damage Committee to come back with a recommendation. So I actually found the fault kind of in the delay with the committee and the commission. And so with that, I would just ask that maybe we can get Mr. Rain, who chairs that committee, to do a letter or a phone call to Mr. Laughlin apologizing. If we could do that, I'd appreciate it. Okay?
Thank you. As I remember, we bring it back to the Predator Committee for approval, and it comes back to the commission again. Is that my memory?
That was what my notes showed for the minutes and the notes I had taken from the meeting.
And then it's going to come back to the commission to be voted on.
Exactly. And if Mr. Rain could help us out with that, or Commissioner Rain could help us out with that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the record, Gil Yannick, Carson City Advisory Board. I'd like to announce the fact that the Fuji Park Pond work is underway. It was approval, the contract was let, and work proceed order was issued on last Monday, and 78 days from last Monday, we should have Fuji Park Pond in operation. Well, it'll be finished. We'll have the water, we'll sit in it until springtime, it'll turn over, get acclimated, and we'll work out something, I'm sure, with NDOW about stocking that pond. We would like to have agendized for the December meeting in Reno, where the advisory board and the Carson City Fly Fishing Club would like to make a presentation to the commission on the progress and work that have gone almost completed by the time the commission meeting in December is scheduled for. And we have some other things in work to commemorate the occasion, but in the meantime, we plan to bring a series of slides and presentation material to make the board aware of what has happened, and we'd like to thank the board and the Department of Wildlife for their long-term support on this project and for the financial support that they provided to make this come to fruition.
One question, Gil. Where are you going to get the water?
The water is already, the diversion lock has already been built. The tribe is, the Paiute tribe is all in favor of letting us have the water from Clear Creek, and everybody's getting along very well.
Would you send me something, a note in writing on that to be
Sure.
put on the agenda?
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Gil. Commissioner Capurro?
Gil, what are the dimensions of that pond?
I'm sorry?
The dimensions of that.
It's a 1 acre pond. And it'll also have a free-floating, the depth, 15 feet, and it'll have a ADA-approved pier and ramp. It's going to be great with a railing, and it's going to have rod holders. You'll be impressed.
What are you going to plant in it? Pike?
No, thank you.
What kind of fish?
Thank you.
What kind of fisheries are going to be?
Probably it's going to be a put and take with trout.
Trout?
Yes.
Good.
And it'll be a great thing for the Carson City and the area. And you know, we've got all kinds of plans afoot to utilize the pond to promote fishing, promote family, you know, usage of the pond. We'll use it for training for, you know, fishermen and sports fishers from around the county and anybody else who wants to come to town to use it. So everybody's really looking forward to this. And
kids fishing derbies and stuff
yes,
like that?
yes, we can give Gardnerville some competition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, recently I attended the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies meeting in Texas, and all the state directors are there and directors of all the federal agencies. And I can tell you, the states that are maintaining their fishing license sales, it's all about urban fishing programs. So being this driest state in the nation, it's tough for us, but this is a great project, and we're trying to encourage other urban fishing opportunities as well.
Right. We had there's opportunities even in Reno, like on Coleman Pond up there in northwest Reno, digging it out a little bit and putting fish on there and having a kids derby on that. There's a lot of opportunity, I know, even in the Reno area for limited fishing, like the Sparks Marina is. You know, that really draws a big crowd, sells licenses. Any other county board members for any announcements? If not, I'll close the agenda on that and go to public comment period, and make sure everyone fills out a card if you wish to speak. Commissioner Ray.
I had two people that had public comment written on it. First one was Ken Wellington. That'd be followed by Mr. Cecil Freddy.
Sorry about that, I'm getting old. Again, for the record, Ken Wellington from Elko County. I'm speaking on behalf of myself on this one. And what it was about is some concern over the time clock management in Elko for the 3 minutes. Now, all my life have fought for people's rights to be able to speak and say their piece. In fact, I get kind of criticized at my meetings because I allow people to go on and because I feel everybody has a right to speak. I just want what's fair, and what I noticed is that Mr. Vogler had a good point. He got up to speak. Maybe that should have been an agenda item so the department could have addressed some of his concerns. But, you know, he was allowed to speak for 14 minutes. And then Mr. Freddie was punished and only could speak for 8 minutes. And people after that were limited to 3. And so I just, as a point of information, I'm a real kind of stickler that I think people have the right to speak out. And if it's 3 minutes, it's 3 minutes. But if it's more than that, then let's make it more than that and make it fair for everybody. Keeps us away from any open meeting stuff. And with that, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
You know, we usually have a clock here, and I remember in the Lovelock meeting when Don Moley was there, and he had graphs, and Tommy handed them out, so I think we gave him a little extra time because it took him time to hand out the graphs and that, but we try to raise our hand. We don't have a bell. We got a small bell here when the time is up, and then the vice chair, you know, tells them the time's up, wrap it up, and so we give them a few more seconds to wrap it up, but we try to keep everybody in the same. We really do.
Okay, and that's all I'm asking for, because I do believe
No, I
in that.
understand, because they can get carried away, and that's why we have a little clock up here.
I'm fair with that. I just thought, you know, Mr. Freddie had things that he wanted to say too, and I know some of the other people, and they didn't get a chance to finish everything they were going to say.
I thought maybe I cut him off at the last meeting. I told him time was up when he was talking. I thought I did that, but anyway, we do keep track of it, and the vice chair usually has a clock running, so we'll watch that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public?
Mr. Frid, I had a card for public comment.
Cecil Freddy, and this one won't be long. Some county advisory boards to manage wildlife, like Clark County, are demanding more power over the Wildlife Commission. County advisory boards claim they represent the general public and sportsmen in their representative counties. Well, in some cases they don't, and I'll prove it. I obtained the sign-in sheets, and I have them here, which I'll turn in. I obtained the sign-in sheets for the people attending the Clark County Advisory Board meeting from the beginning of this year. Excluding wildlife commissioners, former commissioners, and Allen County employees, here are the results. In January, 3 people attended the meeting. In March, 5 people. In June, 5 people. August, 5 people. September, 3 people. That's an average of 4.2 sportsmen or general public attending the meeting in Clark County. Washoe County has the same 2 or 3 people attending their meetings. There was a high of 10 people attending the meeting to lynch Chairman Lind. That'll bring back our deer. Clark County has a population of 2 million. Washoe County, 400,000. Attendance is pathetic at these 2 county advisory boards. Who are they going to blame for this, Chairman Lind? Clark County has 7 people on their board. That's 3 more than are attending their meetings. When you have more people on the board than the people attending the meeting, you're basically representing yourself. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Commissioner Macbeth?
Thank you, Chairman Lent. I would like to address Mr. Freddy's comments, and I do want to point out that I'm always disappointed at the attendance at the advisory board meetings, but I can guarantee you that there are more people attending than what was just indicated. And I have a feeling what's happening is that maybe some people are attending the meetings and they don't sign in. We've had some pretty good meetings this year. We've had a lot more attendance this year than we've had in the past. And as a commissioner, you know, I attend those meetings to make sure, you know, that I can provide input. And I know Charlie has been attending, and Bruce has attended as well. And so I can attest that there are more people than the average of 4. It's probably more to the tune of about 8, you know, 7 or 8. So I have a feeling maybe some people just aren't signing in. But the point is well taken. You know, I wish we could get more attendance and you know, from everybody. I would like to see Mr. Freddy come to our meetings. I really would. So.
And that's why I made made it at the commission meetings that the county advisory board should make the meetings interesting. Have guest speakers, BLM, Forest Service, expand their agenda from our agenda, because sportsmen want to hear about the transplant program, and get the area biologists to come in and talk about one of their favorite, whether it's water development or even the history of sheep in southern Nevada. And when I was on the board in Washoe County, we had guest speakers come in from Sheldon Refuge and talk about that. We even had the cattlemen come in and talk about some developments, and we had an expert on wild horses. And I think the county boards, and I've said this before at this meeting, instead of just rubber stamping our agenda, make their own agenda up and create interest so people will attend. A couple of years ago, when I was at Washoe County's meeting, at the #1 meeting of the year, the season setting, I and one other public member was there. There's 2 people, and that was the most important meeting of the year for the county board, as far as I'm concerned. From a hunting standpoint, there's only 2 people there, so I think it behooves, and I've said this before, the county boards have to make it interesting and not boring, and have a program and spend some time developing it and get people to come out to the meetings. They should put it in the sporting goods store. They should get it in the newspaper, and I don't know. I haven't seen it much up north. I don't know what they do down here, but that was my take, and I keep saying that to the county boards over and over. Commissioner Macbeth.
Another suggestion at our last meeting was that apparently there's a lot of people that don't like traveling the distance through traffic to get to a 6 o'clock meeting here in this building. And so one of the suggestions was that we actually try to hold meetings in different locations. Go out to Henderson, for instance. We've been told that there's probably a contingent of people that would come to meetings, that live in Henderson if we had a meeting there. Other suggestions were meetings that maybe out in Mesquite, Logandale, Overton area. And in other words, try to move around so we can get a better coverage, because this is a big city, and getting around it is not the easiest thing.
Thank you. Commissioner Cabral.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder about the possibility of securing some PSAs from some of the media sources to get a better indication to people that the meeting is even there. Sometimes you find out that it's just not well enough publicized that meeting. And I would agree with your comments on having a program that deals with issues other than what is agendized at times. But somebody might want to look into public service announcements that would assist in increasing
Microphone.
attendance.
Thank you. I know that up north in Reno, Mark Forrest Sporting Goods Store, which is the biggest sporting goods store in the north, and I think it's one of their biggest license sellers for hunting and fishing licenses, and they made a special board up years ago when I was on the board, and it was called Washoe County Board to Manage Wildlife Bulletin Board or something. They had a special bulletin board up there to put the announcement on, right in the front of by the cash register, and they volunteered to do that. And then pretty soon, nobody from the board was putting notices or anything of interest to sportsmen, right, where they could see it at the cash register. So they did that up there, and that we have a Cabela's up there, and you have a Bass Pro down here, and just having a bulletin board for the advisory boards to tell all the sportsmen coming there, yes, we have a meeting, and here's the agenda, and that was doing good for a long time. And then whoever took over the board up there just didn't do it, so they took the board down. But that was another idea that we had up in the north at one time. Commissioner Rain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had one comment on that, and then I had an additional public comment at some point. On that, I know, just to perhaps reiterate some of what's happening, I know generally I am the public when I go to the meeting over there in Eureka County, and I remember there was one other member of the public about 1.5 years ago that I recall. So, and I think that was somebody that was looking to, there was a vacancy on the board and they wanted to get on at the time. But that seems to be the way of the world. And a lot of it has to do with lack of stuff that's relevant to the county specifically.
You got another item?
Yes, thank you. And the other thing, I would just like to make comment. I've had the Mr. Sefton's website has got some really good stuff on it, and I found it very useful because I get people coming in, you know, have issues with NDOT. I had just relate an incident. I won't tell the guy's name. The guy comes in. There's conspiracy. You know, my bonus points are not giving them to me. You know, the world's coming down. All this stuff. And the website, it has the information. Okay, I don't know. Maybe it's true. Let's type it up. Website's right there. The information's right there. Okay, what's your social security number? He types all the stuff in the computer. The answer is right there. It makes it simple. That, I mean, you know, I could resolve his issue. Came in, conspiracy, the world was coming to an end. He left, and oh, I see. It's great to have that resource at your fingertips. It really does resolve things. And, you know, I run into a lot of the hunting public all the time. It's part of my business. And, you know, in a grocery store, hunters coming in all the time, you hear these things, and it's really great to just be able to resolve those questions. And what you've got is great. Thank you.
Any other comment? Okay. I had it open at one time for the public. Come on up.
Well, the reason why I'd like to speak is
You got to come up to the microphone if you're going to speak.
thank you for recognizing me, Chairman Lent. Paul Dixon, Clark County Cab Chairman. The reason I'm up here to speak, and I did put on for public comment, is I'd just like to say some things in rebuttal to what Cecil Freddy said in his public comment for the public record. As pointed out by Commissioner Macbeth, we get emails, I get phone calls, and stuff from sportsmen in this state. All of our board members do, and all of our board members bring those, and we agendize action items prior to the meeting based on those phone calls from sportsmen who cannot always attend the meetings, as Commissioner Macbeth said. We did discuss, as Commissioner Macbeth said, moving the meetings around to various places in Clark County, which is a large county with a large amount of people, to try to hit some of the sportsmen's areas out at Henderson and other things, which is, this will be my third meeting as chair in December, so I'm slowly making changes to where I want to go in this. The other thing is I have received from 2 former chairs at Clark County their mailing lists. And for this last meeting, I did a mail distribution to probably 150 people who used to attend meetings at one time and invited them. I don't know if I had any success at getting there. Some email addresses bounced, but I did and am trying to do things along those lines. I like your suggestion, Chairman Lent, that we go out to Bass Pro Shops and try to get a board. I hadn't thought of that. I think that's a great idea. But I would ask the public and people to realize that Mr. Freddy has not attended one meeting in the year that I've been going to and been on the Clark County Advisory Board or other things, and for him to stand up and say that he represents, as Hunters Alert and other things, the sporting public, but doesn't attend the meetings down here, I think is a bit hypocritical, and I'll end with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that within 2 minutes? I had a comment, but I don't know if it is the time to bring it up. But we're keeping a tally of the county boards. What are we at? 5 represented today? Suzanne? We keep a tally. I'd just like to comment on that. You know, as far as I'm concerned, we keep a tally, and at the end of the year, you know, when their budgets come through, if they don't attend the meetings, then, you know, we should take that. If they attend 50% of the meetings, we should do 50% of their budget. Now, this meeting is, I think, is important. We got 5 counties here, and, you know, we're going to set fishing seasons, and we got 5 counties here. Well, you know, fishing brings a lot of revenue into the department, and this is an important meeting. And because the game department, their budget is $187,000, and the fisheries is $839,000. It's very important. This is a very important meeting because we're going to set fishing seasons, and we only have 5 counties here, and that's disrespectful. I think that, you know, this important meeting when we're going to set fishing season, and we're going to have a lot of complaints, and I think the sportsmen should be just as interested in fishing as they are in hunting and everything else in the state, and I really am, you know, disappointed we only have 5 county boards this should be one of the big meetings of the year. That's just what I want to say about that. Okay, I'll close the, not hearing any more public comment, I'll close the public comment. Go to the next item of business is approval of the minutes. Has everyone had time to read the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make public comment.
Public comment?
Yes.
Okay, I'll reopen it.
My name is John Hyatt, 8180 Placid Street here in Las Vegas. I'd like to address two issues. First one is use of lead shot and bullets. I'm aware that the department has banned lead shot on wildlife management areas, and I certainly congratulate you for that. I think it was a great move. But I think we need to step up and look at the next move, which would really be banning lead shot and bullets in hunting, period. The more we learn about the toxicity of lead for humans and animals, the more toxic it seems it is. If you look at what the federal government has done in terms of lowering acceptable blood lead levels in children, it's just come down, down, down over the years. And there certainly is some threat to both human and animal health from use of lead shot and bullets. People hunt quail, chukar, and so on. And that meat, if they eat it, has some shot in it oftentimes. Sometimes, most of the time people chew on that, they bite down, they feel it, they spit it out, but not always. And if it's children eating that stuff, they ingest it, and even a single lead pellet's going to do something significant for their blood level, which affects basically mental development in children. It also affects wildlife. If we look at the number of eagles that die from eating carrion that's got lead in it, it's significant. Most people don't see those eagles. You know, they're off someplace, they just die. But wildlife rehabilitators can tell you that they do see those animals occasionally, and with enough work they can be saved. But if we just did away with lead, that could solve that problem. We've done away with lead in gasoline, we've done away with lead in paint, and I think that we should consider doing away with lead in bullets and shot that we're putting out there. The other item I'd like to address is something on your agenda tomorrow. I won't be here at that time to comment. That's input concerning Nevada's mule deer population. I think that we've had studies now going back almost a century which demonstrate that habitat is key to any wildlife population. It's habitat, 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 and if we don't work on habitat, we're not going to have these animals. Nevada being a very dry state, it's also very much dependent upon precipitation. If you look at NDOW's own studies, which they've done over the years, you can see that years following high precipitation levels that we have increased numbers of deer. And so I know that there's a focus now on predators, but if we don't work on habitat, you know, the predator stuff is basically, I think, irrelevant. So I would really recommend that, strongly consider habitat projects. Thank you.
Thank you. The public comment period is closed. We're not going to reopen it now. We're on approval of minutes, and has everybody had time to read the minutes? Are there any corrections to the Commissioner Rain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had reviewed the minutes, and there was one, well, there was just a couple minor things. One was on page 5, and and that would be the bottom paragraph, 4th line, second half that says, and staff plan to attend out of state, I believe my wording, and I went back and looked. I was asked to repeat this at the following meeting, so I went and looked at the videotape, which is nice to look at, and I repeated the exact same thing, and it was, and staff attended, as in past tense, out of state. So I moved, we strike plan to attend and insert attended. That is what I stated, that was in the notes, and when I repeated that twice at the request of the AG at the following meeting, you'll note on the videotape that is exactly what it states. Also, the number on the following page, page 6, for the number, page 6, paragraph 2, where it says the slaughter of 909 does, I believe that was 987 was the number. Those two corrections all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Where was that at then?
That would be page 6, where it says 2, number 2 down below,
number 2, right.
Correspondence, and just the number there was 987 as opposed to 909.
87.
Yeah, 987.
987, okay. Any commissioner have any problem with those changes? Any other corrections? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
Move to approve as corrected, Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as corrected. Any discussion? All for the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as distributed. Huh? Corrected as distributed, right. Next item on the agenda is correspondence. Items received by any commissioner. I had a file that doesn't have any commission correspondence in it. I don't know why. There was some correspondence that we got. I'm talking about quail. I got some correspondence on some people and had a quail problem and down at Silver Springs, and they were eating all of their vegetables up, lettuce, and I'm sure everybody got it, and I think the department got it too. I didn't see it in the file, but anyway, I'll just, and it was by a farmer down there, and they want it on the agenda, and I didn't put it on the agenda because it's something that I called the department up and said they should handle it internally. It's not a commission item. We don't micromanage it. And then I was surprised when I talked to the people on here, Ray and Virginia Johnson, and this was on the County Advisory Board agenda for Lyon County, and they didn't do anything with it, and I was kind of surprised because he said this is something that's been going on for a couple months, and it was my first knowledge of it, and it was on the agenda for Lyon County, and I don't think they're here. And so I emailed them back and said to talk to their county commissioners because Jim Jenny not doing his job. He's supposed to present it to the commission if there's a problem, and we could have taken action on it. We would have directed the department to look into it. And I didn't hear anything about it, and so we sort of got jumped on not knowing anything about it. So I had the director handle it, and I guess he's handling it, and because quail are easy to trap, and if there's a problem, look into it. But that was, he wasn't too happy, and I was hoping he wasn't going to ask for remuneration on his crop, you know, but that's the correspondence I had, and I'm sure that the department has that, so I don't have to give you my copies. Do you? You have that, don't you, Director Mayor? Okay. And that's the only correspondence I had, basically. Does anyone else have any correspondence? Commissioner Rain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did receive a document. I believe the commission also received the same document, and it's noted that it was sent out to all the commissioners as well as the department, so you should have a copy of this. It's from the Office of the Attorney General, referring to a question that I had brought forth actually at the 2 previous meetings, and that was about a request that I had asked for. And this document, dated September 11th, 2009, it's responding to a question that was never asked. It states here that it's request for future travel by the Director of Department of Wildlife, request for list of professional organizations to which the Director belongs. Fortunately, we have videotape. Reviewing the videotape, it was exactly what my notes, and I was asked to repeat it, so I did repeat it, and you'll see in there it says, if anybody'd like to look at it, it's right there on the web. List of all trips that the Director and staff had taken to attend professional meetings out of the state, and a list of all non-NDOW organizational titles held by staff. That's verbatim, repeated twice. And also, and I go on to refer to under the budgetary oversight authority of the Commission. Now, in this document that the AG Nguyen had written, it refers to an NRS 501.181, which yes, that does give authority, some broad authority, but actually I was referring to budgetary. What budgetary items? How much is it costing? What are the line item budgetary expenses for this travel? And I understand that that comes from, aside from the fact that I believe everybody in this room, it's public, should be public record, but specifically, we not only have the right to see it, but we have the duty to oversee, to look at. We're not directing, we're looking at. Under 501.337 subsection 6, in which we are supposed to review the budget. And we're talking the budget. So therefore, I don't see the relevance of this letter. It doesn't answer the question that was asked. And the information here, man, it kind of brings the question, every time I ask a question about a budgetary item, am I going to get a response from the AG? Or are we just going to, here's the budgetary items? What I would think I would get, here's the budgetary line items. Or is it the intention of staff to simply refuse those requests? Thank you.
So the request was not for future travel, right? I don't have the minutes. But.
Correct. It states in here, you inquired about travel information, trips that he was going to take, specifically, request for future travel by the Director of Department of Wildlife. And at all times it stated Director and staff, and then in titles, it actually said, endow organizational titles held by staff. That's what the videotape states. It does not specifically state Director, however, it would be part of staff. I was at no time trying to single out an individual.
Could I make a comment here? What I would suggest is 3 people listen to what you said. There's 3 different interpretations, including the AG representative. I suggest that, so we're crystal clear what it is that you're asking for, put it in writing, and then we'll be able to respond exactly to what, because you use terminology that means different things to us. So what you got is what was interpreted and what you wanted. So if you want something different, I would suggest strongly that you put that in writing and we'll respond to that.
Thank you, and I would appreciate some correspondence, perhaps if there's a question, call me. I think people have my telephone number. Well, I think this is what he wants. Nah, and you don't, you have staff, have one of them call me. That's fine. Is this what you're looking for? Yes, no. I'd be happy, if I knew there was a question, I would have been happy to call in. I'd be happy to stop by the office sometime, discuss the matter if that would be more appropriate. But this format of I ask a question and I get an AG's opinion saying I don't have day-to-day authority to instruct the director, I think things have been read into. And I think people are reading into this, that you're saying this. I didn't say any of what people are reading into it. I asked for budgetary item. How much money is being expended for these items? I didn't say you need to do this. I didn't give any suggestions. I asked a budgetary question. And if anybody's reading into it, that's their interpretation. Thank you.
Well, he'll rewrite it, and because I have budget count 4452, Endow Administration Director, $74,000. It's common knowledge, and maybe you can supply that. And you've expended $11,000 this year. You can maybe, it's public information, and maybe you could get that to him. And
as long as we know exactly what he wants.
Yeah, and I think. Commissioner McMahon.
Chairman Lynn, thank you very much. I guess I'm a little confused, Scott. Your request was with respect to budget items?
Yes, it's a list of the items of the trips were spent, and as went on, we're talking about under the budgetary oversight, so therefore we're talking about how much money is spent on them. We're talking budgetary. Budget means money.
Okay. Let me just make a comment, because professionally I am a CPA, and so words, when I hear words that have a technical meaning to me, then it becomes apparent that maybe others don't necessarily see them the same way. A budget is a forward-looking document. It basically projects out what you're going to be spending in the future. That's what a budget is. If if what you're asking for is historical information, that is what you know, a commercial enterprise would call a profit and loss statement that actually reports on the actual transactions that have occurred. So I think it would be important to be very clear what it is you're asking for. And in that respect, our authority is to the budget, which is the forward-looking document, and not as to the past. Those items are history, and I'm not sure what our authority is with respect to that. The NRS specifically speaks to the budget, and in my mind, that is what is NDOW going to spend in the future. Now, I haven't done any technical analysis of NRS and find out what definitions is, but just applying, you know, normal financial terminology, a budget is a forward-looking document. It's very clear that that is our authority to review that budget, and that our finance committee was going to, you know, what we learned in the last legislative session is that by the time we started looking at the budget, it was almost to the end of the process, literally to the point where that budget was going before the legislature. And so we did look at it, but did we do what I feel is a really good review? No, I have to admit we didn't. And it was because we didn't get involved in the process early enough. And so our budgetary review function should be starting right now. In other words, is that budget, whenever the period of time is that the budget starts to be put together for NDOWs that's going to be presented to the next legislature, we should be involved in looking at that budget. That's what the statute tells us that we're supposed to do. I don't think we're supposed to, you know, be delving into the department's, you know, past history of what they've been doing. We can certainly, you know, look at budget items, line items, and challenge them if we feel that they are excessive. I think that is, you know, part of our function. But I think we should be very clear as to what we are doing. And so, you know, if Scott's letter, you know, asks that, you know, I just make sure that you understand what the term is, what the term budget means, because in my mind it means something different than what you're talking about. Thank you.
I don't think the director would have any problem giving that information up, but I think, Commissioner Beth, when we review the budget, I think we have to look at last year's budget, see and compare the current budget, and you always want to do that and compare any increases, like the G&A account. You want to see if there's a 50% increase. You want to see why it is from last year, and when that's part of the review process, a responsible review process. So you have to look at the past one to see what the changes are. And so, but I don't think the director has any problem given the budget as public information. And I think there was given the right guidance and exactly what Commissioner Rain wants. I don't think there's a problem. Any other commissioner comments? If not, I'll go on to the next order of business. If I didn't skip anything, 2010 Commission meeting schedule. Is that the next one? Secretary Mayor.
Yes, if you turn to this, excuse me, Ken Mayer for the record, Director of NDOW. What we've got here is a table under item 3 that shows the locations, proposed locations for the meetings and the dates. And the dates are almost mirror what they were this year. Is that correct, Suzanne? Except for a little bit of a shift in March because of the North American Wildlife Conference. So there it is for your review and modification if you so desire, and then approval. What we have is three meetings in Reno, a couple in Vegas, one in Fallon, which was a suggestion. Well, actually, there's a nice facility to meet in Fallon. And then about August is when we're talking about waterfowl. And the thought was, we threw that out there, that there may be, we know there's a number of people there, the Canvasback, the Greenhead, and those that would like to participate. And that's kind of at the time when they're really thinking about waterfowl season, provide some input. And then we've been between Ely and Elko, so it'd be back to Ely. in June.
We've got to make sure we can have support because we've got to move a lot of equipment and staff, so we got to be able to sure we can meet in a place.
Right.
I remember we had, we like to get out into the area, but I remember one when, I don't know, it was Pioche or something, that was hard to get reservations unless you brought your own camper, but, I mean, we could go to, what's that place where you're at, Grant?
Middle of nowhere.
Does any commissioner have any questions on the proposed schedule?
I'm sorry, Mr.
We'll have
Chairman.
some public comment on it then.
Ken Wellington for the record, Elko County. We had one question. That was normally we do a workshop for the county advisory boards, and I have a new guy on. We were looking forward to sending him to that this year, and I don't see that on this schedule for some reason. Is that done with? Are we not doing the?
Is that every other year? That's what I thought.
We
every
did it
other
2
year.
years in a row to get caught up. Okay, that answers that question. Thank you.
But the manual that the department put out is very excellent. And if you give that to a new member, that's got everything you want to know and afraid to ask.
It was kind of nice being able to go over it with them, and so that's all right. We'll send him next year then.
Being chair, I'm sure you can do that.
And I'd also offer if they're in Reno or come in our way, let us know and we can sit down with them and walk things through. And Suzanne, we're more than happy to do that.
Commissioner Wallace?
I just have one comment. It's not a big issue for me, but the August 13th and 14th meeting there, the last 2 years we've had it that same weekend, and it's a shot in the dark, but these last 2 years it's hit me right in the middle of my harvest, and I don't know if we can move that a week later maybe. I mean, I don't want to do it just for me, but as long as it doesn't mess everyone else up, that
As long as it's
I
not
would
in hunting
appreciate
season,
seeing
right?
that. What's that?
As long as it's not in hunting season.
I agree with that. Thank you.
Commissioner Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does that get us pretty critical as far as, that's when we do the waterfowl, and if you go a week later, it's an issue, I think, getting things out, and if you go a week earlier, we might not have the data.
I think that's correct. If we go a week later, we're better than a week earlier because of the Pacific Flyway Council nexus, the Fish and Wildlife Service regulation process. So.
It was just a thought. I can make it work either way.
I don't think it makes
just,
any difference to us as far as availability of the facility.
The only thing is that if there's shortness of time between the previously you get this budget turnout. If you go later, it's 5 weeks between that on season in September.
Okay. Well, we'll just leave it that way then. I'll make it work.
Well, and actually in this particular case, because there's 5 Saturdays, if you do it the 20th and 21st, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, it'd be 5 weeks to the September meeting. So, and there's a holiday in there, but that would work. If that was your pleasure.
Say that again.
If you want to move that August meeting from the 13th and 14th to the 20th and 21st, that would still give us 5 weeks before the next commission meeting, because we run up against trying to get all the minutes and the notes and, plus any committee meetings that happen. That's all got to kind of come together with the package, and we're trying to get Suzanne's seasonal help, but it's all hands on deck. But as long as it's not 3 or 4 weeks, it'd be better, so we could certainly do that, I think.
I'm good with where it's at. I don't want to cause a bunch of work for someone or issues with our time schedule, but I just wanted to see if it was possible.
What's the pleasure of the commission? You can make the motion if you want to do.
Why don't you make the motion? We'll go with it.
I move to approve as recommended by the department.
We have a motion to go with the meeting schedule as recommended by the department and a second. Do we have any questions on it? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All for the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, hearing none, motion passes. Is that okay? Get it? Okay, let's go to next item on the agenda is workshop informational, Commission General Regulation 368. Bob Hoyen.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bob Hoyen from the Operations Division, Chief of. This summer you saw the success that Don Sefton and Monty had with getting the big game draw results on the web within 48 hours after the draw. And so what we're going to do today and tomorrow is memorialize that in regulation. In your handout, you have a single page on this, and I handed out a copy of the same thing, but this one is in color to make it a little easier to read. And a couple of things. We had submitted this to LCB, a choice of words. They came back with the blue text that's on here. And there were some not technicalities, but a concern to be more precise and accurate and avoid confusion. We recognized, and Don Sefton recognized, that we really wanted to see some refinement to the language there. So let me just point out the item in blue, to include the item in blue that struck out, came back from LCB. And we, for the purpose of this meeting here today, we're taking it to the next step. We're going to submit back with your approval based on the results of this commission meeting. The refinement here, and that's in the green, and we just wanted to be very specific on the timing of this, because the way it read, the concern was that it may have been perceived that the results would have, in a sense, been posted the day after the draw, and we wanted to make it very clear that it would be 48 hours after the conclusion of the draw, and that the clock would start, that 48-hour clock would start at 5 p.m. the day of the draw. So now, as we did this summer, it's Monty's intention and Don's intention to do the draw no later than a Wednesday, and have the 48-hour acknowledgement meet that requirement by 5 o'clock Friday. Of course, if they elect to do the draw a little earlier, it would still be within the confines of the 48 hours. So this is the workshop piece. Tomorrow would be the approval piece, but in a sense, it's that simple. Correct. I think, Monty, can you correct us here, or correct me? I think you were very close to the 48-hour point, right?
We met the 48-hour timeline on each draw we've had since we started with the big game draw this year. We just wanted to be very, the only concern was we didn't want someone to construe the time as actually being 24 hours from the time of the draw. We wanted to make absolutely sure.
Excuse me, are you happy with this new language then, Monty?
Yes, we had some hands in it, and
because I think they had it online by 3 o'clock, and they had till 5 o'clock to do it, and they did it early online. It was online earlier than what the deadline was, I do believe.
Yeah, well, you know,
good job.
It would be our intention to never wait till straight up 5 o'clock. The last thing I need is a problem when I turn it on to find out there's a problem there. I want to have a little bit of leeway, but we used every bit of the. For the most part, we used every bit of 2 days to get ready to do that for a big game.
Yeah, Bob, I'd just like to say that this is probably the one thing I've heard more comments on and compliments on than any I've heard for years from sportsmen. Great program. Commissioner Rain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question I had about this language in green is the language in blue said not later than. The language in green implies that you won't give it out earlier.
Well, if you'll look in the blue, the first blue line, at the end of it, it says administered by or on. So that gives the leeway to...
by or on behalf of the department, but not about time.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I think the way we all interpret this is it'll be done within the 48 hours. It could certainly be done prior to the 48 hours. See, the way it was reading in the struck out portion, there were a number of people who looked at this on staff, just as we did kind of a test on some rookies to be looking at this, and some perceived that this could have actually been the day after, and we just wanted to make sure that it was within 48 hours from the draw date, and we're specifying that draw period, that 48-hour clock starts at 5 o'clock the day of the draw.
Well, was there a reason why it would not state results for tags and permits not later than 48 hours after the draw, or some, this because the way this is looking, it's saying exactly 48 hours. I don't know if there's a legal and would they be in violation of this if they turned it in at 47 hours? The way it's written in green, it kind of implies that. Although I don't think anybody complained, but there's a couple legal people here. Perhaps they could look at that.
Well, considering this is a workshop, I mean, we could certainly address that to allow that on or before choice of words.
You can apply till 5 o'clock.
Pardon me?
You can apply till 5 p.m. of the deadline. And the intent was, you know, they got 48 hours from the deadline, and that's what this says.
Well, this isn't the deadline. This is from the draw.
From the draw, yeah.
Recall that. That's from the draw.
I meant the draw.
So on the day of the draw, the 48-hour clock starts at 5 p.m. I guess I see Commissioner Rain's point of view here. What you're trying to assure is we're not held to a strict viewpoint on the other side of this, meaning it's got to be at 48 hours. So,
Commissioner Cavan, do you? Pardon me?
Yeah, my question, maybe it's for Monty. When you're talking about limiting yourself to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on the drawing, is that just because if you did it on Friday, you'd have overtime issues and that sort of thing? Or I don't think we want to limit ourselves to that, but I'm assuming you're kind of limiting yourself out loud for that reason. Is that correct?
Correct. I want to make sure, I need to make sure I have all of my resources available to make that 48-hour deadline when it comes to the main draw, so I do not want to pay necessarily overtime and try to convince everybody I need to make sure that they're all there over the weekend, so I can make a Saturday or a Sunday display of those results.
But we wouldn't be eliminating that possibility if
it could happen. There's no technical reason.
Okay, thank you.
Monty, another point on here, it doesn't say the main draw or the secondary draw, it just says the draw.
This is for the draws, correct?
It says singular. So does this mean for both draws then?
This applies to all of the draws.
All the draws.
I mean, the focus has obviously been the big game draw. That was the one of greatest interest to the public, but.
Okay. Commissioner McBeth.
To address Scott's point, I would suggest that we add the word within after permits, but before 48, the number 48. So it would basically read the department shall post on the internet website that is operated and administered by or on behalf of the department the computerized lists of draw results for tags and permits within 48 hours after the draw. One word.
That's exactly what I had written on my sheet of paper. Good eyes. Oh.
You have a legal mind.
Anybody have any question on that? Commissioner Capurro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question goes to and I know that the LCB is awful slow. It's on. Whether it's working or, well,
there it is.
Geez, I got to lean that far over. Okay, I realized, because of course I represented the trucking industry for years, and we had all sorts of different regulations that were proposed. So we know that LCB is slow in getting this stuff out. But this regulation was adopted as my recall is adopted as a temporary regulation. Why wasn't this language provided by LCB at that time? I have no problem with the language, but it should have been provided to us before the temporary regulation was put into effect.
I cannot speak to that. I don't know if Rob Bonamici might be able to from the law enforcement side. What's that?
Yeah, for the record, Rob Bonamici, Chief Game Warden. On temporary regulations, it's a little different process than permanent regulations. Permanent regulations goes through the full gamut of review through LCB and so forth. The temporary does not go through that review. So when we go to make it a permanent, that review takes place.
Thank you, Rob. That answers that. I was wondering about that. What's the, now does this have to go back to LCB with this language change?
This will go back to LCB's subcommittee for regulations.
But shouldn't be any problem for...
That's what I've been told. The experience is that they haven't turned it around, and talking to Rob Bonamici's staff, who is close with this, they don't anticipate any problems with that.
Any other, any comments from the public on this? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Howell?
Mr. Chairman, I was wondering, how long does it take to post this? Isn't it almost instantaneous? Well, they do it with a computer, right? These draw results are going to be out at 5 o'clock, 48 hours later, and it's instantaneous almost.
There is an administrative and a procedural process that systems consultant has. Monty can address that if you'd like, but it's a sequential process. I mean, there's a lot of steps involved. And to go to where we've been to where we're going now, they rearranged the sequence of some of those processes. Monty, you want to touch just briefly on what those are? Because there are a number of new commissioners here.
As Bob indicated, there are steps we go through once the draw is conducted, and we have to perform a number of updates on the files and create the tag records for the successful applications, sell licenses to clients that opted to purchase only if successful. And anyway, each of these processes takes a certain amount of time. And when we looked at how quickly we could turn the results around and get to the point where we could generate the HTML to put it up out on the web, we came up with a 48-hour timeline that we felt comfortable with.
I guess my question is, if I go on the website as soon as the time frame is up, the 48 hours, and I check to see if I got an elk tag, it may not be posted until, say, 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock? Or does it posted right away at 5 o'clock after the 48 hours?
Within the 48 hours, all of the results for everyone is available on the web.
So in other words, it could be posted 24 hours?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's not immediately after the 48 hours?
No, it's 48 hours. We need close to 48 hours to be ready to put it out there for the big game draw. We can do it a little bit, we can do it quicker with the smaller draws, but for the big game draw where we're dealing with 250,000 applications.
So if I just wait the 48 hours and check it, then I'll have my answer?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Then, do you want to do a wording change on that? And we can change it now.
Yes.
We cannot change it on the second reading tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow's your decision.
Right.
Right.
But we can give you directions on changing it now if we want to add a word, right?
Correct.
We can't change it tomorrow. We can change it now if we want. Do you want to,
No, you can change it tomorrow at the public hearing. If there are other comments that come in and the commission is of a mind to accept those comments, whatever they may be, you can change it up to the time that you adopt it at the hearing tomorrow.
we can change it tomorrow till we adopt it?
That's correct.
Is that what you want to do? Wait till tomorrow? Commissioner Rain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'd just like for everybody to look at that wording change that's suggested by Mr. Macbeth. As he said there on the second line of that, the computerized lists of draw results for tags and permits within 48 hours after the draw, inserting that within. Everybody look at that, and if you see anything wrong with that, or a better suggestion, bring back tomorrow, please. Thank you.
It's information.
Another similar choice of words might be not later than, at that same location.
Okay, this is just information today,
Correct.
so, and it'll be an action item tomorrow. Let's go, did you get that? Well, we'll probably
I've
do
got
that.
within,
Let's go to
after
the next
permits
item.
and prior to 48 hours.
Within was the word, wasn't it? Within. Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next item, Commission General Regulation 369, Rob Bonamici.
Again, for the record, Rob Bonamici, Chief Game Warden. Commission General Regulation 369 was adopted as a temporary regulation by this board. And we are now back here to re-adopt it as a permanent regulation prior to the November deadline. So if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. It basically defines edible portion, what hunters are required to retain. So it provides that as a minimum. Hunters can retain more of the meat if so desired, but this is the absolute minimum as required by law is what we're looking at here.
Okay, any questions from the commission of Rob? Commissioner Morai?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question that I had was under, on the first page there, 1A, where it says big game mammal, except mountain lions and black bears. Is, in your opinion, would it be important to put other big game mammals that have been declared, such as wolverine or wolves, or are they assumed not to be used for human consumption, or what you're thinking on that?
From a legal standpoint, it would probably be a good idea to include those other big game animals as exempt with the bear and the mountain lion. It's just at this point, we just don't harvest any, basically, so it hasn't been an issue.
Commissioner Macbeth?
Thank you, Chairman Lent. First of all, I think this is, we're almost done. This has been around a while. When I read it, the only thing that I thought might be added, and I know there are others that will speak to this and might have a different view, but I would have liked to have seen on item on number 2A, which basically defines what the term edible portion does not include. It states on that A, it says meat from the head, and I would just really like to add and neck. We talked about the neck a lot as being an item that we did not want to have included in the definition of edible portion, and I think it just makes it very clear. I don't think that the definition of head includes the neck, and I guess that's where what I'm confused at when I read this, and just really would complete it for my left brain to have the neck included in there.
Commissioner Capurro?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I would concur with that recommendation after going through this, because the description in here, I suppose what you could consider it to be is these things have to be taken, and that's the only things that are required by the regulation to be taken. So the issues that are on subsection 2 are specific items that are not included in that. Seems to me, and I think Clark County's CAB also made that recommendation, Clinton Bentley, with respect to adding meat from the head and neck. Now, as long as this doesn't have to be redone again, I would be in support of adding meat from the head and neck on subsection 2.
Any other comments? I'll turn it over to the audience. Anybody out there that want to speak on this? Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Cavan first.
Maybe just to clarify, and I'm not sure of the terminology, but maybe for Rob, on the Wolverine and the wolf issue that Commissioner Moore brought up, I'm not sure whether we listed those as big game or just game mammal.
The Wolverine, I believe, is listed as, I believe we stuck with unprotected on that. I'd have to double check real quick here. But I believe that was the classification for that. And the wolf, we haven't
it's just
addressed at this point. I think right now it is currently classified as a game mammal.
Game, but not big game. Maybe you could check on that.
Double check.
So that we could have that clear for tomorrow. Because it would go down in the next, it'd go down in section B instead of section A if we decide to insert that language.
Commissioner Cavan, I can, on 502.020, big game mammal is defined as pronghorn antelope, black bear, mule deer, mountain goat, mountain lion, Rocky Mountain elk, or of the following subspecies of bighorn sheep: Nelson bighorn, California bighorn, or Rocky Mountain bighorn. That's what big game is.
Okay, so it would.
So it's silent.
It would have to go down to
B.
If we did put it in, we'd have to go down to section B there, 1B. If we put Wolverine and wolf.
And I'm not sure why we'd want to put Wolverine or wolf.
Okay.
I mean, they're not.
Well, it's not listed in big game, so that takes care of
Yeah.
Pete's concern on the big game portion. And on the game mammal, maybe it's not necessary there.
I think it would behoove us to stick with what is defined as a big game mammal and exempt those that are not, as it currently states, mountain lion and bear. To get into the wolf issue or the Wolverine, which we're not sure we have any Wolverines in the state. So,
any other questions? If not, anybody from the public want to speak on this regulation?
For the record, Ken Wellington again, and I apologize. I did my recommendations at midnight that night, and that was something I have in my notes here from my board, is they wish to have under section 2, the term does not include subsection A, meat from the head or neck, is what they asked to have put in there. And I apologize for not having that in the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the record, Gil Yannick, Carson Advisory Board. Our board would like to see in section 1A regarding big game mammals, except mountain lions and black bear, to add neck meat, that you need to not waste that.
Thank you.
Rex Flowers with the Washoe County Board. We felt leaving the neck meat out left it strictly up to the discretion of the hunter, and he could either take it or leave it depending on whether he was in proximity to his vehicle or his camp or way out. And some members of our board were real strong in opinion that neck meat is edible and it should come out. But in the long term, we did vote just to leave it up to the discretion of the hunter and not list it anywhere.
Thank you.
For the record, Paul Dixon, Clark County Cab, as was pointed out by Commissioner Capurro and Commissioner McBeth, we did ask to put neck meat on something that you didn't have to take, and that was based on the fact that we had Officer Pfeiffer, who I believe I think I pronounced that right, or Pfiffner, at our meeting, and we went through how he read things and what it would mean if you were silent on neck meat, and he felt that we needed to make a statement right or left from an officer's perspective in the field, and that's really what I wanted to say. So we either specifically say take it, or we specifically say you don't have to take it, but leaving it ambiguous at this point, or ambiguous, God, can't even talk, there we go. It would help the field officers being much more clear there, because he thought the rest of it was pretty cut and dry till you got to that. That was a gray area that it would be at an officer's discretion how they interpreted things, so having it more specific would be good. Thank you.
Thank you. No one more from the audience. Let's bring it back to the commission for any. Commissioner McBeth.
Thank you, Chairman Lent. You know, what's good about discussing these things is you start seeing things that you didn't see before, and I just want to, I know that everybody knows that we don't eat mountain lions, but I do believe some people eat black bears. And I'm just wondering, when I read this, the way that this works, we've excluded mountain lions and black bears. Do we need to add that as an exclusion item on section 2? And I'm assuming that we are taking the position that people do not have to save the meat of a mountain lion or a bear.
One thing, if you look around the West, I know in Alaska, I think you have to take a black bear to consume it. Grizzly or a brown bear, you don't. And I think most of Western states require, California requires that you take the meat of a black bear. So this is kind of an interesting topic to debate.
Yeah, you don't need on a brown bear, you don't need to take the meat. Yeah. Do we need to specify, you think, on this, Commissioner Rain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I do know black bear is quite good, and parts of the mountain lion are as well, but certain types of the year, backstraps taken at certain times of the year are actually very edible. But there is many conditions dependent upon that. You know, I look at this and I'm thinking, you know, I understand the reason for inclusion of item 1 and item 2, but you could almost eliminate item 2, the whole item of the exclusions, and just go with inclusions. I mean, we're kind of running into a little problem here with this, is we're including stuff and then we're excluding stuff, but if it's not included, therefore it should be automatically excluded, and we could, you know, you could go through every possible portion of the animal that is not included. So that's kind of what we're running into. You know, run into that neck meat, we run into the brisket. We don't talk about the meat off of the ribs. There's a lot of different portions of the animal that are not listed in the exclusion, but by the fact of not being included, I'd like to ask that to Mr. Bonamici. There he is. I should let, you know, by it being not listed on the inclusion list, that means don't have to bring it. And my interpretation, is that correct?
What we've done is, since there was so much controversy and discussion over what is edible, what isn't edible, I mean, you just go around this room, everybody's got a different opinion. What we did was we made it real clear what is included And then to further clarify it is, we felt it wouldn't hurt to say what is excluded. So basically, when we enforce this, we fall back on what is included. What are you required to take out? I mean, that's all we can enforce, is what are you required to take out? Did you take out what you're required to take out? What is not included is further clarification to the sportsman.
So the neck portion to you, as it's stated, what does it tell you? I mean, as it's currently, do I need to take a neck or not, the way it's currently written?
You do not. Because it's not included as what you need to take out. You know, you don't need to, we don't mention hooves or teeth or, you know, we can go on, but we just tried to provide some basic, you know, direction to the hunters to make it as clear as possible to the hunters without going to the extreme and saying you don't need the neck, the ear, you know, the teeth, and, or whatever, the hooves.
Any other question, Rob? Okay. Commissioner Capurro?
Yes, sir. I don't know of too many people that eat the teeth or hooves, so that's one that I think speaks to itself. But there, as you correctly pointed out, there was a lot of controversy over neck meat, and that most of the people that I hunt with or am aware of take some portion of the neck, and this doesn't prevent them from doing so. They could even take the heart and the liver if they wanted to. That wouldn't violate this provision. But I do like the idea of being specific. If we're going to put in that it does not include meat from the head, and we intended it to be on the neck too, I think it should say and the neck.
And we have no objection to that.
We worked on this regulation a long time. We got it down where everybody liked it. And I think we ought to, even though it didn't go through LCB, you know, everybody seems to like this, so I'd rather not real complicated. We want to add neck. I don't think that's going to complicate it, but we got a good reg. We had a lot of people comments on it. We worked with law enforcement, and I'd like to keep it the way it is or very similar without going back and changing a lot. And if we want to add neck, I think that'd be probably a good idea to do that. But to go back and reword it, I think is a waste of our time, because I think we all agree on this regulation now, and I'd like to keep it the way it is. And we can add neck if you want on the second reading tomorrow. And we got any other questions? Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is Commission General Regulation 371. Mark Warren.
Chairman Land, fellow commissioners, for the record, Mark Warren, Chief of Fisheries. The proposed regulation would remove an artificial lure-only regulation for Crittenden Reservoir, limit method of take at Smith Creek Reservoir to only artificial lures with single barbless hooks, and limit method of take at Daisy Reservoir to artificial lures only. Crittenden Reservoir is a reservoir in Elko County. I fished there for years. It's a trophy water. It's on private land. The landowner decided that he was going to close it off to the public and only leave it open for pay-to-fish people, which he's done for the last several years. And so just to clean up the regulations, we thought we'd take that off our restricted take regulation. Smith Creek Reservoir is east of Fallon. It's on a ranch. The dam itself is on private property. Approximately 80% of the reservoir is on private property. When it was inundated, they found out it was the south side, and a little bit of the bay was on BLM land. This allowed the general public to come in and fish. The ranch owner has had problems with the public for the last couple of years. It's got rather contentious. They've had the local sheriffs out. They've had wardens come out there and try to resolve some of the problems. The people come down on a road that comes down on the other side of the ranch, and they fish. Theoretically, they're supposed to stay on the BLM part, which is not marked. Of course, it's in open water, and they go to all parts of the reservoir to fish, which has caused the rancher owner to tell them to leave. It's led to some conflict between the anglers and the ranch owner. This spring, we went out and met with the owners and discussed this regulation, which he was willing to compromise and allow the one fish limit and the artificial lures. Daisy Reservoir is part of a complex that we manage in one of our wildlife management areas, Kerch. For years, there's been interest in the southern region to create a trophy fishery there. The best way we can do that is to limit the take to artificial lures. The Daisy is rather a small reservoir on the side. There's 3 other reservoirs that are fished heavily by the public, a lot of them from Las Vegas. Those regulations will remain the same. Our intent would be to create a trophy trout fishery and allow the bass take to remain the same. We didn't put a single barbless hook on because a lot of people do fish for bass and use different types of lures, so that would kind of restrict them. So that's our proposal.
Okay. And what was the reasoning behind one fish limit and artificial lures, and that means he went along with that, the landowner? What was the reasoning behind that?
He just felt that would restrict the number of people. It would limit the number of people possibly that would come out there and fish, and limit the amount of fish they would take out of the reservoir. It's kind of his reservoir, but it is on BLM land, so that's where the conflict kind of came up, and he just wanted to limit the fishing there. Since it is on BLM land, then of course, that part is open to the public. Following this conflict several years ago, the reservoir was drained and all the fish, perished that were in the reservoir. So that's something that could come up again. The reservoir is presently, I was out there several months ago, and it's about 2/3 full, so it's filling up again. It has a stream that feeds it that has trout in it that can come down into the reservoir. He also has a business of rearing trout there at the ranch, so the water from the reservoir goes down and goes down through his private holdings where he does rear trout.
Mr. Chairman, this is our attempt to try to find a compromise. 80% of the reservoir is on his private property. It's a pay-as-you-go operation. He does have a hatchery as well, so those are his trout that he planted in there. Is that correct?
That's right.
And so the people come around the backside, get on the BLM, and once they hit the water, they figure they can just go anywhere they want. And so then there's conflicts between his guided clients and the public, and fisticuffs and yelling and screaming. And so his solution to that is pull the boards, drain the reservoir, and eliminate the potential fishery. We felt that trying to find some middle ground where we could still provide some access, they still could take a fish, provide some artificial lure, be able to provide that recreational opportunity without him feeling his need to protect his private property rights and protect his fish resource that he's paying for. So that's how we came to this compromise at this point.
You feel comfortable that once you take an inch, it won't take a mile, that he'll go along with this and keep it open then?
Well, we can only hope. I mean, he's still in control of the reservoir, but I think the staff has done a good job of meeting with him and talking these things through. We've looked at potential other solutions, like maybe an easement where we'd pay to provide public access to lighten that, you know, that conflict, if you will. But I feel pretty comfortable. They seem to be really upstanding people, and that I think this is the compromise that he.
Yeah, we went out there, law enforcement, several fisheries people, himself, the Hendricks, his ranch manager, and we went up and looked at the reservoir and, you know, walked around and kicked rocks and talked about it, and then went back down the ranch and talked about it some more, and he seems, this is something, we went back and forth on the times that it would be open and just talked about several issues. He doesn't want people up on the dam. Of course, there's a sign there that says private property just because of any problems with the dam. But he seemed, we worked back and forth, and this is the agreement we came up with that he said he would support.
Okay, thank you. Any, Commissioner Cavan?
Still not open. This is a first step.
I didn't see
it.
He has not opened the reservoir yet. This is a first step to maybe getting to that point.
Yeah, the reservoir, the BLM part would still be open.
But his private portion is not.
Right, his private portion, as far as he's concerned, you know, I mean, people come up and they have pontoon boats, whatnot. They kick across the reservoir, they get out, and he comes up and tells them you're on private property. And, you know, there's sometimes they say, okay, and then sometimes there's some conflict. So this would be the first step into opening up the rest of that reservoir. Right now, to be legal, you'd have to, you know, you come down on the BLM portion, and then there's a very small section of, I mean, real small, of the reservoir that you could actually fish along, and you couldn't fish out in the middle of the reservoir. So this would be the first step into, as far as he's concerned, opening it up to the public on his private land.
Commissioner Cavan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At what level in the reservoir does it end up being completely on private land, Mark? Is it, you said it's 2/3 full now, is it still accessible to the
I would,
public
just as a guess, Commissioner Cavan, I would, without looking at a topo map or a hydro map, I would say when it's probably 2/3 down, then it's all his property and you couldn't access it.
Of course, from his perspective, he's paying for the fish rearing and all the fish that are in there, and so that's going out the other end with the public. So
you don't put any in?
No, not.
No. You know, we don't stop it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would think that Mr. Hendricks, being a wholesaler of fishing gear throughout the state, would probably, you would think that would be a very good thing for his business to have more fishing. But glad there's some kind of agreement here. I understand this is also somewhat of the reason, a similar situation, different people, is the reason why Tonkin Springs Reservoir is still under the artificial lures only, as my understanding. I'd asked a question about that before, if those conditions were still there.
And we replied. That. Yeah, we replied, right, Scott? We emailed you back on that with an answer on Tonkin?
I never saw that.
Huh. Okay.
Uh-oh.
All right. But yeah, you at the Lovelock meeting, you asked me that question, and with John Elliott, our regional supervisor in Elko, we got together and then we emailed you a response, and then you replied back and said that you received it. And so anyway, it was passed. That was supported by the Eureka County Board. It's a similar situation. It was a rancher there that wanted to limit the amount of anglers. The reservoir being partly owned privately and partly public, and it's almost the same situation. Felt that was a good compromise, and passed by the Eureka County Board, and then passed by us.
Yeah, and that happened a number of years ago, but it's been addressed and talked to him again in more recent times.
Yes, John Elliott, like I said, our regional supervisor in Elko has met with him within the last couple months, and he felt that with the litter issue and just the whole issue of people coming out there, he was happy with the way it was going.
And one thing on that particular location, I know I've had just 'cause it's somewhere near where I'm at, I do have people question all the time. It's not very well, there's issue with signage in some of these areas. And, you know, in places where we do have these regulations, I just ask that, you know, do the best possibly can on signage. Because I know there's people come in, you know, buying power bait to go out and go fishing at Tonkin. You know, that's his job, but I try to, you know, and, well, I've never seen a sign, and it's very innocent, a lot of very innocent things. So work on signage. And I know that some of the places that, for instance, have chub and whatnot, that NDOW does not want to have in the waters, lots of times, I brought this up before, perhaps, you know, signage is good, because a lot of people, they don't know that that NDOW would prefer to not have them return them to the water. And that might be a good way to remove at least some portion of those unwanted fish. Just a request. Thank you.
Yeah, we try to sign everywhere we can. I mean, even on the Truckee River, keeps the law enforcement guys working. Yeah, they're fishing the trophy section with bait, you know, with worms, and we find worm cans and whatnot, and they go up there as you know, often as they can. And we have signed, you know, areas, but we could surely check on those signs of Tonkin.
Any questions from the public on this? I'll turn it over to public comment.
Okay, I just wanted to add one thing, if I could.
Go ahead, Mark.
As far as responses go, there was 2 counties that didn't have county game board meetings, apparently Nye and Esmeralda. And of course, we all know we have 17 counties, so that leaves 15. And from the 15, we received 8 responses. 7 of them supported this, and 1, Churchill, did not. They wanted to leave it as a 5-fish limit, so just so you know that. I don't think they're here, but they didn't support it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, turn over to
Mr. Chairman?
public comment.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, excuse me.
I'd like to address Daisy Reservoir, if I could.
Oh, sure, sorry.
Daisy Reservoir, you spoke about the bass fishermen up there. And presently, you can't fish for bass up there now until August 16th.
Right.
And you're going to open it year-round now?
We are. That's actually will be presented to the commission at a later date in December. That was kind of an afterthought. It's actually a wildlife management area regulation, and we worked through the Habitat Bureau and got that changed. So there'll be 2 other regulations coming down the pike. In December, 1 will be to open it up year-round. We'll buoy it off, and so the people are excluded from the upper end where the waterfowl nesting takes place. And the second one has to do with boating. It'll be unique in that only boats without motors will be allowed the first part of the year until August 15th, and from August 16th on, you can have an electric motor. And that's again to protect the waterfowl. But those will be presented to the commission later. We didn't get them back from the Legislative Council Bureau in time.
I was up there a couple of weeks ago, and I only got to speak to 5 different fishermen. That's all there was out there. And they were all in agreement to go to single barbless hooks if you were going to make it a trophy fishery, because otherwise you're going to see a lot of dead trout.
Yeah, and you know, I'm a fly fisherman, so I would, you know, that would be mine, but we also try to not exclude the bass fishermen, but that's a, you know,
they're used to not fishing there anyway until August.
Yeah. Yeah, and statistically, fewer fish are harmed with a single barbless hook, of course, than with a treble hook. But we did this at Hinkson, where we allowed treble hooks because of the bass fishing and the popularity of that. So we tried to, you know, compromise a little bit and allow both. But that's something that you could change, you know, as a commission.
It would seem to me to make it a trophy lake, you want to save as many trout as you can so they can grow.
That's exactly right. Yeah, there's been a lot of studies, and even with single barbless hooks, there's about a 5% mortality. So once in a while they get hooked through the brain or through the gills or something. So even in the best of times, you know, you do lose some fish, and of course with a treble hook it would be more.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll turn it over to the public now. Any public comment on this item?
Gil Yannick, Carson Advisory Board. I'd like to add a little bit more to the story about the Hendricks Ranch and Smith Creek. Several years ago, I had the pleasure of being able to fish out there, the Trophy Pond and the area behind the dam. And I also had, I knew Dwayne, the ranch manager, because he was on the Governor Sage Grouse conservation team with me, and I've been out there and seen some of the things that they've done to preserve the habitat and increase the population of the sage grouse. And I came back and I talked to Deputy Director Haskins about the issue that he's very vehement about at that time. This was several years ago. Because as you said, he took us through and showed us his breeding operation and all the effort that he puts in. And the thing that he was most upset about was that people coming in through that BLM area, getting onto the lake and pulling out some 18 to 20 pound trout, 5 or 6, 4 or 5 of them, and he says to me, they can't eat that much trout. And he says, I don't mind people coming in here. I enjoy people coming in here to fish. But when they make pigs of themselves, I'm getting upset. And that's when this thing kind of hit a crescendo, and he pulled the plug. And I'm really personally, I'm really happy to see that the department hasn't given up on this and made the attempt, and definitely has been able to come to a meeting of the minds with the Hendricks family, because it's a great place. If you haven't been there, I strongly suggest you go and fish there. It's, when you get a 5 or a 10 pound trout on your line, you talk about exhilaration. That's it. And to be able to share this and to keep it, I mean, one of those is a day's effort. And it's really great, and we at the Carson Advisory Board, who a number of people on the board have been able to get out and fish at Smith Creek, are very happy to see this step taken by both the department and the Hendricks family, and we're all in favor of supporting this issue, and hope you do too.
Thank you.
Paul Dixon, Clark County. What I'd like to say for the Dacey reservoirs, when we talked about that, I'd like to thank Mark and Endow for doing something that Southern Nevada has been trying to get for a long time, which is the establishment of the potential trophy waters. And Paul Harris on my board was instrumental working with Mark and others in Endow to make that happen. And I just wanted to thank Endow for really working with us, because when we first started to talk about this, I think Paul was told, look, this has been tried several times before in Southern Nevada, just go away, it isn't going to happen. And you guys did the extraordinary thing, and I just wanted to personally thank both of you and your team for what they did. Thank you.
Thank you. Gail?
Gil Yannick, Carson Advisory Board. A question did come up in the reading of not so much this particular issue, but the big fisheries proposal, that the green book that came out. And there was some confusion, and we had a discussion about when you go to a listed water, and there's where it says 5, you can take 5 in possession. And until you consume those 5, you can't take any more. Now and we said that means that particular water. So if you went to body of water A and caught your limit and took them into possession, then you've been to body of water B, which also had a limit of 5. You could take 5 in possession. That means if you could have a total of 10 in possession from 2 different lake bodies, or 5 only regardless. That was the confusion. So it's...
You want Rob to come down, I let Rob interpret that.
you have that many waters to fish?
You want to do this, Rob? Okay. For the record, Mark Warren, yes, you can't be at one water with a limit that exceeds the limit of another water. So if you're fishing in an area and the limit is 5 fish, then that's all you get for the day. And if you go to an area that's 3 fish limit, what I think you're referring to, you can't fish. But conversely, if you started with the 3 fish limit and then went to the 5 fish limit, you could catch 2 fish.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Any other comments? This is the information item here. Okay, we've got 2 choices. We can take a little break now, or we can take a short break for lunch. One or the other 2, whatever you want to do. Want to break for lunch? Okay, let's take, how long do you think we should take? We're close to somewhere to eat, aren't we?
There's a cafeteria here, so. Cafeteria.
You want to take an hour or 45? We're going to break for 45 minutes for lunch. Where's my pen? I think we left off item 7, reports, informational. A, big game release plan for 2010 and 2011. I think Mike Cox is up.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mike Cox, Big Game Staff Biologist for Nevada Department of Wildlife. Everyone should have received our Big Game Release Plan for fiscal years 2010 and 2011. I can go into detail or skim over, and if there's particular questions, we can jump into those. However you want me to lead off, I'll take whatever suggestions you have.
Why don't you start?
Well, we'll go to page 2. Page 1 is what we accomplished last couple years, but we'll just go into what we propose for the next couple years. We've got listed desert bighorn, California bighorn, Rocky Mountain bighorn, and some pronghorn. Desert bighorn, those are all augmentations. And again, if you wanted me to get into details on any one of those, let me know.
I have a question on all of these. Do you tell us where you're getting them from? Importing, where you're getting them from?
No, we historically with this plan, we haven't identified that. We're certainly thinking about it. And for example, California bighorn, we, up until about 10 years ago, relied heavily on state of Oregon and Idaho for California bighorn. We would identify our release and what our interests are in terms of reestablishing a herd somewhere, but we were always at the mercy of source stock. And at that time, it was those states, or even earlier, we were going to British Columbia. Now that we have well-established, 1,800, pushing 2,000 California bighorn in the state, we're pretty much able to do ourselves our captures and transplants for California bighorn. Occasionally, there might be Oregon saying, hey, we've got some excess California, you want to come and get it, and they've been doing that with other states over the last few years. But so we'll start looking at source stocks a year or two before populations that are doing well, populations that are nearing carrying capacity, and then populations that have similar habitat, climate, terrain characteristics as our release site. And we try to keep options so that maybe there's 3 or 4 those source stocks that we would prefer, and we just wait until the information comes back from survey or whatever that those populations can afford a capture complement to be removed.
Like in desert, you've got 220 sheep you're going to augment. Do you have that many? You know you're going to catch them. Do we have that many extra sheep somewhere to transfer?
Well, we've got now, today, probably over 7,000 desert bighorn. That probably equates to 2,500 to 3,000 ewes. And in fact, we've got fifteen populations over 150 and 20 populations over 150 and 15 different desert bighorn populations over 200. So we definitely have the animals, and again, it's just a matter of matching them up. And we do have density issues. I'd like to maybe this winter come back and make a separate presentation on kind of our overall thoughts on our mostly desert bighorn, but certainly include the other subspecies in terms of how many we think we can manage in a particular mountain range with existing waters, existing winter range. Talk about some of our populations we're concerned about that are nearing carrying capacity or possibly that have reached or maybe even over what we would consider a reasonable carrying capacity, densities, number of animals on water in the summer. Some of our winter ranges are fairly limited. So we do have those source stocks that we're looking at, and certainly those will be the first ones we may grab sheep from where we've got density concerns. And then hopefully I'll bring up that dirty word of ewe hunts this winter too, and talk about how we want to use both captures and potential harvest, both as management tools, depending on our opportunities that we have. We certainly want to use as many animals as source stock as possible, absolutely. There's still a lot of potential habitats that have no sheep in them now, and but there may be a situation that maybe an area a source stock has some disease concerns, and maybe we don't want to spread that disease, and it's not a viable source population, and maybe that might be a candidate for a ewe hunt if neither us nor another state wants to accept those animals. So we just want to keep our options open. But our source populations, our biggest decision on where we're going to go is from a lot of our surveys, most recent surveys. And for like deserts, we're doing surveys right now. And we'll take that information, sit down with our regions and say who's got what, who's got concerns on densities, and take a look at our release plan and see what we can match up. And again, it's a 2-year plan. Not all of these do we have any desires to accomplish in 1 year. And it's costly, so we have to live within our means in terms of capture costs and whatnot. So,
no deer?
No deer. I'll maybe explain why there's no deer and why there's no elk. And was there a question?
Chairman Lynn?
Commissioner McBeth?
Mike, the River Mountains is not a herd that is hunted. It's out between Las Vegas and Boulder City for everybody who doesn't know. But how many sheep does that produce, you know, for our transplant program? How many come out of the River Mountain herd?
Well, there's someone behind me that probably knows better, but I came down to a fraternity meeting last year or 2 years ago, and I did an interesting query of which mountain range has provided us the largest amount of source stock. And it probably wasn't a surprise to some that the rivers had, but a ton. I mean, I think, you know, it's been like we've released about 1,800 deserts into Nevada throughout our history by ourselves. We've never taken anyone else's deserts. They're all inferior compared to Nevada's deserts, so we wouldn't want to take anybody else's. And I suspect we're, what, 500, 600? About 700 sheep have been removed from the rivers throughout the history of our captures for source stock. So it's been a very, very productive herd and good genetics. And so, yeah.
How many sheep per year? I mean, what kind of production do you get out of the rivers? I mean, how much of this 200 are potentially going to be satisfied out of the River Mountain herd?
Well, that population is, what, about 250, 300?
There's about 210 to 220 adult animals is the estimate. We've taken 105 using lambs primarily. There's been some rams since 2005. Currently, we have what can be considered a very high ram ratio. So if we continue to take some using lambs out, we're going to have to maybe come back in late December and consider taking some Class 3 and Class 4 rams.
That's Pat Cummings, our field biologist for southern Nevada. But, you know, we've been probably grabbing anywhere from 20 to 30 ewes, say 3 out of 5 years, 4 out of 5 years from the rivers. And, you know, we've had some really poor lamb production in past years, but in the recent years, the population has been building. So we'll definitely continue to use it as source stock. The ram ratio is another matter. Mule deer. Mule deer, obviously we all know they're a little different than bighorn, but there's a lot of similarities too. When you have vacant habitat that has none of your species of interest in it, but yet the habitat itself is accommodating that species, then it's a pretty easy explanation cell that reintroducing that animal, everything being equal, you're going to have a population establish themselves. And that's what we have with bighorn sheep, and to a certain extent pronghorn. We've got areas historically that had those animals, then they were extirpated for lots of different reasons, and they never did fill back in, or there wasn't a population close enough or animals close enough to fill back in. And so that's kind of, in general, the conditions under which we have been successful in introducing bighorn sheep into the state. We have a lot of good bighorn habitat, but they were extirpated. I mean, completely none left. No core population at all. Mule deer, you know, at least since European man came over, we had mule deer wherever there was habitat, and there hasn't been any extirpations of those. Obviously, we've got some major declines in some of our deer herds, depending on where you're at, and but they're there, And if there's a population there, then that population is living within their means, living within their habitats that they have, and all the other mortality factors that they deal with on a daily basis. So to use a trap and transplant, capture transplant, to restore mule deer, you have to have good habitat first. And so whatever the deer herd is out there, those animals have increased or decreased up into accommodate that habitat. Now we've done some captures in the past. They've been due to nuisance and depredation causes. And along with, well, I know Arizona had done it, Utah has done it, and there's probably several other western states that have made an attempt to capture and transplant. I mean, transfer deer hundreds of miles or a sizable distance from where they were captured. And I can't recall any successes from those. And along with that, right now, whether we wanted to do it or not, we've talked about it. I'll give you an example. Esmeralda County, Commissioner Wallace may be familiar with the Palmettos, the Magruders, and there's some country in there that has some potential. It's got a low-density deer herd. What if we were to build some water developments? What if we were to open up some of that summer habitat at 8,000 feet and get rid of some of that PJ? If those habitat actions were taken, summer range increased, plenty of winter range, water developments built, well then I think we've just increased that carrying capacity for those deer, and maybe we don't want to wait 20 years for that deer herd to build. Could that be an example of where we could possibly, transplant some deer? We could, but one of the other problems we have, well, sometimes our sheep don't read the script that we write for this release plan. Deer are even less inclined to do that, and it's amazing the amount of distance they will travel. We always have a core of ewes, bighorn ewes, that will establish where we want them. And we always get some rogues that travel around, figure out that there's no better habitat, and they come back. But us and a lot of the other western states, mule deer do a lot of traveling because it's all mule deer habitat, and they could potentially beat you back to where you captured them from. So that would be an extreme situation where we might consider it. But right now, even if we wanted to or could, we have, because of chronic wasting disease, a moratorium on moving cervids within state or across state lines. That's my kind of basic explanation of why you don't see mule deer and haven't on the release plan, because of their nature, their habitat demands and needs, and their current distribution throughout the state.
How about for genetic mixing like you do sheep?
It's been brought up. We haven't really done much for mixing sheep. There's definitely other states that do that with genetics in mind. They might consider they have a bottleneck because the source population was a very small, was a single population, and we haven't really seen any deleterious effects on our bighorn herds, that their lack of genetic diversity. But we all know that we've got certain deer herds that have certain genetic makeup. I'll grant you that. Area 22 and Area 23 and Area 24 are pretty good. We haven't, as biologists, I guess, discussed playing God in that arena of taking those genetics and sprinkling them. It just hasn't come up. Back to the release plan. You know, looking at the desert bighorn, I'm gonna single out Mount Grafton. It's a population that we tried to establish back in the late 80s, early 90s. We weren't successful. There may be some things that we didn't do right then that we might be able to do better now. It was a rocky population that we tried to establish. Since then, our statewide bighorn sheep management plan came out, and we wrangled long and hard on where to tell ourselves where to put deserts, where to put California, and where to put Rockies. And we actually decided along a line that would actually put the south end of the Shell Creeks into our desert bighorn release area. And some of those decisions actually were based on the facts that were presented to us and pretty much the scientific literature provided by John Wayhouse and Rob Ramey that the entire Great Basin was desert bighorn sheep, from the Snake River Plains to the Colorado River. There was clines of sheep living at different elevations and habitats. So with that in mind, we wanted to give as much future potential to restore desert bighorn sheep. They're the fewest in number of bighorn in the United States. But we still wanted to recognize, you know, we've got great populations of California and Rockies. And we're still going to, you know, do our best to expand those subspecies. But so we've got it on the list. We still have some issues we have to, or hurdles we have to deal with on Mount Grafton. And you'll see there's a few others that we've put these out there. But some of them have some management actions that have to be taken before we would do the transplant. The other thing I'd like to do maybe at a separate meeting, because it'll take some time, is to get into what we call our bighorn sheep matrix and what our biologists have provided for input on potential habitats, and how we're looking at that list constantly of where do we have potential for bighorn habitat, but at the same time we have the limiting factors that there's risks involved that we would have to accommodate and deal with and manage before we would actually put the sheep in. But that we're continually looking at that, looking at our best shot, you know, the areas that we think we have the best potential for bighorn to establish and hunters to have access to them someday in the future. Questions on the deserts?
Commissioner
Howe? This Mount Grafton, it's been tried before. And I noticed in the comments here that you're going to do some after the augmentation, you're going to do some predator control after the augmentation. Why wouldn't you do it beforehand? Give them a better chance.
Well, you know, maybe the day after they're released is post.
I'm talking about maybe a month or so ahead of time.
Well, you know what happens, depending on when we put them in, is you might be wasting your time because we know that there's deer and elk herds. We know there's mountain lions living on Grafton right now. You might as well let the sheep tell you where they're going to live and where they're going to set up shop. If you were to kill, a lion now, you're probably going to have lions filling in within a month or two right after they're removed. And it may be on the south end of the mountain where the sheep, they decided to go to the north end. And spatially, you may have wasted some money. So I would rather see us watch where the sheep start setting up their home range and then take action on removing some offending animals in that area and try to get the biggest bang for our buck.
Commissioner Rain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Could I finish my thought, please?
I didn't know you weren't finished.
Excuse me. It just seems to me that you're going to, if you already know there's a lot of lions up there, they can travel a long ways too. I wouldn't want to sacrifice, you're only putting 30 in there. If there's a lot of lions up there, it ain't going to take them very long.
Well, that's why I said, you're going to constantly have influx of lions no matter what you do. If you kill one Monday, you're going to have something Friday. I'd rather know where those sheep are going to establish first.
Let's start 6 months ahead of time then.
We'll take that under advisement.
Thank you.
You bet.
Commissioner Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Several different questions here. One thing I don't see much of on any of these is issues with landowner or other land user conflicts. To what degree have those been addressed in any of these projects? Because there's bound to be other land users in many of these project areas.
Well, our individual biologists are the ones who are submitting this plan, and they obviously know the local use of those areas. So, we can take examples or whatever, but I know they've taken that into advisement. We have this year, we submitted this and mailed it out, this plan, to all the major livestock organizations and to all the land management agencies who the land management agencies managing the dispersed recreation or permitted use. But really when I think about all the sheep releases that we've done, never had anyone put out, never had anyone kicked off, never had anyone complain that they saw a bighorn sheep while they were out there doing whatever they were doing, whether it was cutting hay, riding a motorcycle, or whatever.
We've had people come to our meetings and state that they've been removed from the land by this agency, so we need for transplants of various animals. We've had that within this year, in fact. But that's almost a separate thing. But we should, there should be some evaluation where you do look at that and do speak to these people, have some form of outreach to see if there are any conflicts that are going to happen. And looking at this, I don't see that. Other things, costs.
We're here today. We're here today for those inputs.
Okay. Well,
we are at the county game boards for those inputs. That's our public process. Now, on top of that, the BLM and the forest has NEPA. They have a public process people can comment on.
But there's a relatively limited number of people generally in each one of these areas that one could contact and see what issues there are. It's hard to say without going out, and I would assume that would be a portion of the biologist's job to go out and go to these individuals. Some of these areas might not have very much private land, if any, but that would make it very simple. Those that do have a lot might be a little more, but I would think that would be a portion of the site planning and approval process. and I just didn't see that in here. Also, I don't see anything where it discusses costs associated with this plan. You know, what the budgetary requirements are to do all these transplants versus what is available. How is that going to be addressed?
We live within our means. We have funding that we either use from internal pots of money, federal aid, heritage, or we secure donations to help defray the costs.
I would just think that would be a portion of each project is potential costs. Also, I've talked before, it's been more than a year ago, about the time of the year which transplants take place, and seem to be some differing opinions whether or not fall transplants are better, spring, summer transplants are better. You know, seem to come with a lot of fall transplants. You know, winter kill happens more frequently. I've heard that from different biologists in the department rather than summer ones, but it seems like we do most of the transplants in the fall. Where are these in a timeline relation to the time of the year? We plan on trapping in the fall, planting in the fall, or what are we doing?
Depends on the capture method. You know, if we're, historically, we did drop nets in the summer, use water as bait. So we'd have a capture in July and August. If we're net gunning, you're asking these animals to run continuous 100-yard dashes on the landscape, and even though they're good at it, after about 10 of them, we'd probably collapse and die. So we have to be cognizant of the heat. So if we're using aerial net gun captures, we want to get that temperature, that air temperature down where we're not going to be seeing a lot of stress on the animals.
So is there science that states that fall is better than, that, and one method is better than another for the survival of the animals? Which one's more cost effective, you know, per animal for the transplants? How does that, what is the science behind that? What has been shown to be more effective?
Well, I think it's more art and instead of science that we've all learned throughout the West, the capture methods, but just like I said, cooler temperatures would accommodate a net gun capture, and if we're wanting to do a drop net, then we'd have to do it when the water is the most limiting factor.
I guess that's one thing. I looked at this plan and none of that's discussed on methods or timing or.
It's a release plan. It's just a release plan. So.
Okay. Commissioner Capurro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing that concerns me, and I'm very familiar with the Virginia mountains, I have a relative who ranches out there, and I know that herd's been augmented, I believe, 3 times. There is a lion problem out there. You know, I don't know whether anybody wants to recognize it or not, but I myself have run into 3 lions out there. So. And I believe there's been about 7 taken in a fairly short period of time. What I don't want to do with these animals is provide meals for lions. That's what concerns me about 2 things with regard to the time of year of the releases and the looking at the predator issue as it regards the specific area. And by that I mean that I want to give those herds, or those augmentation releases, or reintroductions for that matter, an opportunity to familiarize themselves with the territory. Lions are real familiar with it, and so that's where your largest kill time is in that first year, until they become acclimated as to where they are and the like. So it seems to me like in some of these situations, you might want to do some predator control ahead of time. And like I said, I know of some areas where there are lion problems. The other question I have is, you've augmented into, last year, you put 75 desert bighorn sheep in the Delamars. Your release plan calls for another 50 to go in there. What is the reason for that? Have you had a predator problem in that area, or is there a change in the habitat since you released in 08? It just seems to me like there's got to be an explanation as to why you've got to augment that soon after you had an augmentation in just a year ago. The last question I have is on the reintroduction of the Rocky Mountain bighorns into the Cochita Mountains. Where are you going to get those animals from?
Mr. Chairman, may I address the Commission?
Go ahead,
Mark Atkinson, Chief of Game, for the record. I wonder if I could just possibly try and answer Commissioner Rain's question, one pertaining to what has been determined to be the safest and most effective capture techniques for bighorn sheep have in fact been determined, and there was quite a significant amount of work that was done in Nevada back in the early 80s. There were a number of researchers, but one of them, Dr. Michael Koch, did a series of peer-reviewed papers on looking at the impacts of different capture techniques on the physiology, well-being, and stress of bighorn sheep. And it's been determined that net gunning at the right time of the year is the least stressful technique for handling sheep. I can provide you with that series of papers if you'd be interested in that. Another thing just on timing, I think as Mike mentioned, it's really important that we take into account the impacts of environmental temperature on these animals when we're catching them, because it does have a significant impact on their long-term survival based on capture. The other thing is that we have to be cognizant of the stage of gestation that they're at, and if we leave it too late, if we're waiting for that cold weather and we leave it too late, we're starting to push quite far into their gestation period, and then the chances for a failed pregnancy or an abortion are elevated. So we kind of have a safe period that we look at, and that involves a number of different things: the body condition of the animals, the ambient temperature, the pregnancy status of the females. So those all looked into, and just one thing that we haven't really addressed in any detail is that, we're very conscious of disease issues and what the impacts are of translocating animals from one area to another. New animals going to a new area are exposed to pathogens that they may be naive to, and then the population that you're taking them to may be naive populations. So for each one of these, we go through a disease risk analysis. And as Mike mentioned, all of these that are on the list here, we're not going to do all at the same time. Depending on the situation, the resources, and so on, we'll pick those, and then on a case-by-case basis, we will do a risk analysis for each one of those and determine what makes sense and what's likely to have the greatest chance of success. And then just one other question, I don't recall all of them, but just with respect to going in early and doing some predation management in areas that we're going to be augmenting these sheep. Obviously, we rely a lot on information from our area biologists, and we do recognize that mountain lions, for example, can on occasion pose a concern for newly augmented herds, and we agree that predation management in those cases is a good idea. One thing I will say that is an issue is just the logistics of performing this predation management. As it is, working with Wildlife Services with their cuts to their staffing, we're unable to even do probably half of what we would like to do. And our discussions with Wildlife Services have indicated that just with 2 lion hunters in the whole state, there's no ways that they could deal with all of our situations. So we have to look at each one individually, determine what the risks are, and then really, as Mike had mentioned, we want the biggest bang for our buck. So in an area where we really do consider it a concern, we would focus our energies on that. So I'll turn it back to Mike. Thank you.
Let me get back to Commissioner Capro's questions. We've had predator management in the Virginia mountains since the last release, and Chris Hampson knows better than I, but I believe we've taken at least 5 lions out of there.
7.
Is it 7? Through Wildlife Services, and it is unfortunate to hear we may not have as much liberty to use Wildlife Services where we want them and when we want them. And there's no doubt that over half our bighorns deal with mountain lions, and it is a very costly program. It is one of the most successful programs in the West. But we don't want to waste our money. I totally agree, and we also want to see every opportunity given to those few sheep to succeed, get established, learn where they want to be, learn where the water is, learn the best way to get to their water and the best exit to keep nimble and keep away from those predators. And at some point, we have to, just like our children. We got to let them out in the big world, and sometimes it doesn't always work. But we are, I think, doing our best to take the resources that we have available, the areas that we know we've got lion concerns, or even, down south we've got bobcats, and making some judgment calls of where to put that Wildlife Service effort, make sure that herd gets established. We know we're going to lose 1 or 2. But we can hopefully have that population with the majority of them get established. And certainly, Virginia mountains is an issue. And although so far things are looking good, we've got good lamb recruitment. So we're just going to have to be vigilant on that one. The Delamars. I think a lot of us as biologists, it's not physics. There's a lot of unknowns to us. The Delamars, and I think I wrote this in, or Mike Scott did. Right now, with some of the fires that occurred in 2005 and then even before that, we may be looking at 400 square miles of bighorn habitat, probably in the top 5 in terms of total single bighorn sheep habitat that's contiguous. It's huge. We're, at the same time, Wildlife Services is struggling to do some of their work. We struggle to survey everything. We'd love to survey hours upon hours with our helicopter, everything, but we can't. And I think we are long overdue to get a very extensive survey in the Delamars. We haven't done one. We've got trail cameras up, and with our limited survey, we see animals that were released in the early 2000s that are still alive out there. So we know that not all of them have been eaten. We do know that we have a lion issue. We do know that it's great bobcat habitat, and bobcats, we were the ones that documented it probably before many other states, if any, that they can take a 100-pound ewe down. So we're with that big of an area, it's what we call our release valve. And again, I need more time to get into our populations, our densities, our carrying capacities, and the risks and costs and benefits of leaving populations build, taking some away and moving them somewhere. And I think a lot of us in the agency have still a lot of faith in the Delamars. It's great habitat. You talk to a lot of the fraternity members who've been up there building water developments, slaving away. It's great habitat. I think there's a threshold on any mountain range that if you can get that population above that threshold, you're gonna have that population moving forward. It's such a large area, that threshold is far beyond some of our normal areas that are 50 to 60 square miles, where 100 sheep is a good core and they can withstand issues. And our plans, if we get all the issues dealt with on the ghost chutes that's stated in our summary there, we would go to the East Humboldts probably for source stock.
Thank you, Chairman Lent. I had asked Pat Cummins, our Southern Area biologist, some questions on Grafton. He provided me with a couple of documents that I think answer a lot of Commissioner Rain's questions with regard to the selection of these areas. And specifically the livestock operators that are on those areas. Now, I realize that document was dated, I think, in the 90s, maybe early 90s, or maybe even late 80s. I can't remember exactly what the date on the document was, but it was very clear to me that they considered all factors, including livestock operators, and obviously trying to avoid areas where there are sheep, domestic sheep. And so that might be a good document that you could maybe get out to the commission so they can see what I read, or I could forward the email that has those PDF documents on it. But I felt that it was a very good, background as to the entire program. He sent it to me with regard to Grafton, but it had it basically covered all the areas, and it was very very helpful to see how the department chose these areas. Yeah,
that's an old assessment. Some of our senior biologists were young and spry then doing those walk in the mountains, and so it was more of a habitat assessment. It wasn't necessarily interacting with the users out there. And Grafton, as we state, we have to still sit down with the BLM and look at a trailing route that's nearby, and that is still a concern. So we'll be identifying that and working with the permittee to see if we can address our risks of potential disease transmission. But
I'll go on record that the permittee on the west side of Grafton is for desert bighorn sheep. And on Grafton.
Bet you he is. That's great to hear. California bighorn, we're looking to augment the Jackson Mountains and specifically the Martin Creek drainage in the Santa Rosas. We'll probably be doing the Jacksons, we hope, this winter, and maybe the Martin Creek next year. Questions on the California bighorn? The ghost chutes, the Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep. I mean, if there's an animal that people are dying to see more of in this state, that's it. We can't do enough for you guys. My gosh, and when you see on 195 Rocky Ram checked in, it tells you why. We are continuing to look for opportunities to establish more Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep habitats because of some of the risks involved and issues out there, land users and other people out there that we respect. We haven't found a spot that we're comfortable with. The Go Shoots is an interesting one, and I won't get into great detail, but a permittee who actually lives in Utah came to the BLM and said, I run sheep and cattle, and I know there's potential for disease transmission between domestics and wild sheep, and I'd like to, for my own benefit, switch some of my permit to cattle, and I hear that it could be a benefit to allowing Nevada Department of Wildlife to restore a bighorn herd. And so we all got excited about that. That process is ongoing, and as this summary sheet states, we are not going to release Rockies into the Go Shoots until that plan is approved by the BLM and the permittee, which provides us assurances and separation from our wild sheep and our domestic, and the domestic sheep that he would probably still run for a few more years. But anytime, and I'm saying this because I truly believe in it, and our agency believes in it. Anytime we can find an opportunity to work on a win-win situation with the livestock industry, we're excited about it. We're not going to cave in and do something stupid that could cause us to second guess things. But at the same time, I'm going to get into this winter. We have more sheep than anyone else except Alaska, wild sheep. And we are looking harder and harder at our source stocks that are reaching their carrying capacity. The densities that science tells us are risky in terms of having an internal or innate catastrophic epizootic occur in those bighorn. We're constantly looking at places where we can find a home for these sheep. And we're willing to take the risk, and we have in the past, not many times, but we're willing to take more risk at a potential die-off of, say, 10 sheep than losing an entire herd of 100 or 200. And that risk is on us. And we're not out to stake anyone on the cross if we lose sheep in that situation. We're going to be clear that that risk is our risk. If we have a disease event, then we'll take it on the chin. So we're going to be, I think, discussing some of those situations and opportunities in the future. And then the pronghorn antelope. We've got some releases identified down in Lincoln County, pending some water development.
I had a couple questions on sheep. Do you think predators are a part of habitat? No, it's not. Do you think predation is a part of habitat definition?
Is predators part of that definition of habitat? I would say no. But just like anything else in the world we work in, there's interactions and things are intertwined. So one doesn't work without the other, one doesn't influence the other. They both influence each other. But habitat is food, water, and cover to me.
The other question I have, Mike, do you think that you should survey an area for lions before you transplant like you do for habitat? Because you wouldn't transplant sheep if there was no habitat. So why wouldn't you survey an area before you did a transplant for lions and habitat?
Well, in the areas that our biologists are concerned about, we do assessments. We get people's opinions. We talk to houndsmen, and we see, what have you ran into? We look at harvest records, sportsman harvest records. So there is some work done, and if there's a question, we probably will be looking to do some predator control once we know where those sheep have established. But there is an evaluation.
if you put sheep in an area where there's lions, I think there's a lot of documentation. Lions can change the behavior of sheep, enforcement areas where they're not naturally want to go. So where you know, like we did this at Mount Grant before, we've lost all of the sheep in there, but can't lions change the whole behavior of any animal if in an area, move them to a higher, lower elevation, or where they wouldn't naturally go?
Yeah, I mean, it's likely occurred with the Sierra Nevada bighorns. Some of their winter range that they'd like to use is it's got lions, and so they prefer to stay away from them.
The point I was making is you wait till you put the sheep in there and there's lions in there, you might have a lower survival rate, and because you're going to push the sheep to where they might not normally go. And if you do it after the fact, you know, the predator control.
I mean, lions they're out there. We know that. We would have not even tried to start bighorn restoration if we didn't understand the dynamics of predator-prey relationships. But we do what we can with the money we have. And we are the most successful state in the West in restoring bighorn sheep. Now, Utah will come tomorrow and they might say they're second. I think they are, but they're not as good as we are. So we have, I know your concerns, but look at the numbers. Not every sheep herd dies from lions. It's going to happen occasionally, but we've got so many successes, it's not even funny.
Any other comments before I open up to the public? Commissioner Morai?
One thing I'd like to say about the reintroduction in the Goshute Mountains is I had an opportunity to talk to the permittee over there that that Mike referred to, and he was on board from the beginning on this plan and how they were going to go about it, contingent upon a number of different factors. And this is an example, I believe, of the department working with the permittee and the landowner to establish common goals and to try to work out some of the problems that may arise and try to foresee these problems ahead of time. So I'd just like to commend the department on this type of a situation, because I think this is the way we need to go about it when we're going to do these reintroductions.
Hearing none, I'll turn it over for public comment now. Step on up. We've got Castanelli.
For the record, Tom Castanelli with Humboldt County. First of all, I think we need to look at this whole program. We're kind of picking at this program. What a great program. I got involved with the county board at the start of this when we started putting sheep in Humboldt County. And look at what we have now. We had nothing. We've got all these Californians. There's places that have gone down, and we have access to places where we've introduced them to replenish these. The Santa Rosas, Martin Basin, that herd's moving off a little bit into Oregon, and we're having a few problems there. But look at the sheep we have scattered around the state, or the northern part of the state, to harvest from and move. Our biologists, the department, I think they need a lot of commendation for what they've done with our transplant program. Look at our herds. We've got 3 species of sheep. What other state has that? None. Nevada does, and it's all because of this transplant program that they did. Humboldt County, whenever one of these comes through, we look it over, and it's, after being involved with it like we have up there, it's no no-brainer. We just accept them. We look at them. We know what's happened with the landowners. That's why I was involved. I was representing the ranchers, and we had some concerns. And it's gone fairly smoothly. You know, we have some big sheep concerns up there with Dufferinas, and we've had a real smooth program run with those Californians through all of Humboldt County, and now they're in Washoe County, Elko County. They've scattered greatly through there. And like I said, I can't say enough about what this state's done. Look at our elk herds, how we've moved them around. Just think back what it was like 20 years ago, and look today. And today, we're transplanting. We're going to have some losses. We're transplanting in marginal areas now. We're at the end of where we can put these animals. Californians to deserts, we're getting out there, and we're going to have some losses, but we're going to have some that make it too. And every transplant we put into this state that makes it is tenfold what we lose, because you have them to pick from on another day, where maybe down here, maybe the McCulloughs. You know, someday the McCulloughs may be bearing a sheep, and we've got all these other areas that have desert sheep that we've planted into, and we'll have a source for them. When it comes to Utah, we recommended, I'm going to bring it up today because I'm here, so I won't have to tomorrow. We're 100% behind that. We've got the Californians that come into this state, and the Rockies. They didn't come from Nevada. The goats, they didn't come from Nevada. And the more we put out there in the United States, and everybody gets on this program, you're going to see our wildlife throughout the West expand. And I think it's an excellent program, and I'd like to thank all the department and our biologists. A lot of this, we don't talk about the biologists. The local biologists are just as much part of this as the heads here. They're out there. They don't want their programs to fail. They're out there looking for spots to put these animals where they will expand. And I think they do a great job, too. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Jolinda Taberti. I'm representing the Fraternity of the Desert Bighorn. We also encourage development of this program and encourage all the sheep releases. One example is in the River Mountains in Boulder City, we really encourage you to be proactive. We feel that there's going to be some disease out there because there is too many sheep out there, and that also we're really concerned at the fraternity about sheep interaction with people. We think that there's going to be a child hurt here pretty soon, and we need some of those rams taken out of there, and we need some more sheep taken out of there. And we've got to be very cognizant. Now those sheep are all named by every citizen out there in Boulder City, and they're their pets out there. So we've got to leave some sheep, and we have to work with them, but we have to be proactive until we're going to get in trouble out there. And we feel that this type of plan has to be in process, so when we do get to take those sheep out of there, we have a place for them to go. I'd like to, Commissioner Capurro, talk to you about the Del Mars. The sheep range used to be Nevada's place of glory, and there was some big sheep out there. I've been out there personally in the last 4 years. I've hunted every inch of it, and it's a shame that the sheep haven't come back, but I'll tell you what, they are coming back, and they're doing better. With that, this summer and this fall, I've been all over the Del Mar range, and the Del Mar range is absolutely beautiful now. They had some major fires go through. They burned 1 million acres in the Del Mars. It's come back. It's rained all spring this year. The flora and fauna is really coming back, and the Del Mars, in my opinion, could be the next sheep range of the old days. And we encourage, for some reason, I want to get it on the line, that there's a lot of people in the north that feel like the Del Mars aren't the place. And maybe they're not, but times change, and this burn we're talking 1 million acres in just the burn. And if you see it now, it's coming back. The fraternity has built guzzlers basically on the west side of that range. On the east side of the range, there's Bishop Springs, there's Willow Creek, there is Riggs Springs. These things are all doing well. They're all full. And we've got, as Mike said, we've got trail cameras on a lot of these, and you can't believe the big bucks that are there now. I mean, we felt we've done a lot for deer in that area, and they're really, really good. The deer are doing really well. We've seen more big bucks in that area this year than ever before. So we encourage you to have this release plan, especially in the Del Mars, because we're trying to think of a place to put the Boulder City sheep. If we've got other places, that's fine. Put them wherever you want to put them. But let's have the Del Mars as that place where we can dump 50 sheep in a heartbeat. You could dump 50 sheep out there tomorrow, and that land could absorb it, and it's ready to go. And it will be ready to go for the next 10 years. That whole area out there is pretty good looking country now, and it has a dramatic change. It was a lot of pinyon juniper. It's all gone, and it's not, the pinyon juniper's not coming back, and it's too arid out there. It'll come back, but it's going to be 100 years, not in the next 10 or 15 years. It's going to be beautiful country out there. So I do encourage the Del Mars. I don't know what happened, why people think the Del Mars are a real controversial area, but I encourage any trips out there or anything, because I personally have been from one end to the other. It's beautiful out there. So we do encourage this plan for all the sheep items. The fraternity does. We especially the Del Mars, and we do encourage some capturing out of Boulder City, because we really feel the problem's coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? If not, I'll bring it back to the Commission for any thoughts. Commissioner Capurro.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, kind of a clarification. I don't have any problem with the releases into the Del Mars as per se. What I'm concerned about, and even in the evaluation here, is that there's an ongoing protection project there now. So that's an admission that you got a lion problem there. And I think that what I'm trying to say to you is I'm absolutely against putting an augmentation in where I know that because of that sort of predation problem, that half of them aren't going to make it through the winter. We've got areas like that have happened. We need to get the biggest bang for the buck. And to me, that includes predator management before you go in and augment. And as to your remarks about the river park, I've had people say there's more sheep in that park there than there are in the city. And some big rams there that people have identified. But you're right, they've got them named, so you're going to have to take them at night if you take them.
One thing about the lions, I'm all for lion hunting. I'm all for taking some lions out of that area. If we want to keep spending a few bucks to do it, we're all for it. We have been with Jim Bueller out there. He's the government trapper out there, and I'll tell you what, he's fed up of being out there. He says on the west side, where our guzzlers have been, he's having some tough time getting lions out there. Shad Leader, who is the guide on the other side, he says we're nuts. We've killed every lion out there. And I'm on your side. Trust me, I'm on your side. We don't want to feed sheep to lions. We're not in that business. But as soon as I've talked to Bueller and as soon as I talked to Shad Leader, we were out there spotlighting, and on the very east side, right by Caliente and going down the Rainbow Canyon, we saw a lion on the east side at night, middle of the night. So now we told the boys in Caliente we think the problem might have been taken care of, but you're right. I mean, there can be lions out there, and I do agree with Mike that we could try to take out every lion out there. And in that area, it's such big country that you're going to get some strays coming in there. But we're not opposed to lion hunting in that area, and we're not opposed to taking some out. And I just want to let you know, though, we feel that there's not a huge lion problem in the Del Mars, and that Bueller and the boys out there riding for a month at a time has helped. So we encourage it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First time, I'm very much a supporter of transplants whenever and wherever it is reasonable to think that they will expand into a strong, healthy population. However, we really need to take a look at all transplants because they're expensive, they're dangerous, they take a lot of effort, and so we really need to think out the management of them. So there's a couple things that I look at this summary that seem to appear to be inconsistencies that probably a little more information might clarify. Habitat is excellent in most of these, which would be a good prerequisite. Predator evaluations in many of them show that there's not really a problem, and yet many of them have been augmented and augmented over the years. We've changed no conditions, so nothing has changed. How can we reasonably expect that the results of a new additional augmentation will have a different result? And it brings back thoughts of, wait a minute, if you do the same thing over and over again, don't change anything, you expect a different result, that's nuts. So what are we changing in these areas since these previous augmentations? And perhaps that's something that can be brought up when this plan comes back before the commission as an action item. So it's going to come back in December, because our policy is to have this, the big game release has to be approved by the commission. So hopefully those can be addressed when they do come back before this commission for approval in, I would assume, December. Thank you.
Any? Commissioner Howell?
I think we're all on the same page here, more or less, with the augmentation. But some of the areas that have been problems in the past, like Grafton, for instance, by example, it seems to me like a serious predator control program prior to the introduction would make a lot more sense. It's an area where, like Mr. Cox said, he don't know where they're going to go, but let's give them a chance to find out where they want to go. If you've got lions up there now, which everybody knows there is, let's give them a chance. And instead of putting 30, let's maybe put 100 up there. We find out we got it cleared out.
Okay. This was a informational item. Let's go on to the next one then, which is the Silver State Tag update. Bob Hoyen.
Commissioners, again, Bob Hoyen for the record, Chief of the Operations Division. This summer, Director Mayer asked that I head up a couple of working groups, one for the apprentice license and one for the Silver State Tag. And we've had a couple of meetings. And in your package, the document you have is just a tool that we created to kind of help us keep track of some of the high-level activities that we're doing. Most notably, try to keep an eye on the timing, how we want to do this, and the roles of various players. Yes, sir.
I don't know, do we all get the documentation?
I picked the document up on the table, but I don't think it was included.
The
in
commissioners didn't get any
packet.
documentation.
Oh, it was on the, okay, it wasn't in the packet, it was in the email, okay.
Oh, I apologize for that. Let me make sure. Do all the commissioners have a hard
No,
copy
they
of that?
would, the documentation wasn't ready for the mail out. We're a slave to the timeline of getting things mailed out. So we followed up with an email to each one of you with that package.
Maybe we can get copies.
We're going to grab those. I believe so. Okay. Well, I'd like them to take a look at it here for a second. I mean, this is informational, but can I just see again who has a copy based on the, oh,
No, nobody has a copy. Got it.
test. You hearing me now on the speaker? You're not, are you?
Speak up.
We'll check with it. Oh, here. It's a fluke, I guess. Okay. Well, let me take just, I'll back up a little bit. The document you have there, it's just a couple of pages long. It is just a working document to help us identify the time frame of activities that we're doing and to identify those that are participating with us. So on the first page, it just gives kind of an overview of the direction that I have from the director. And then the makeup of the working group. We've met twice. Not all participants have been involved in this, and you see it's proposed. I mean, it's not every time do we have these folks. The most recent meeting we had was September 11th, and that included some folks on my staff, law enforcement. Commissioner Cavan was a part of it. Don Sefton was a part of it to help us with the details. And Chad Bliss, the proponent, he called in because what we want to do is try to kind of stay on track with what he was looking for. So the next couple of pages just show a timeline. On the second page there, basically those first three events have occurred. These are just working items for us. To include most recently our 11 September meeting, where the intent was to really start exploring the proposed language for CGR. And as a group, we collectively agreed that maybe the smarter thing to do is come up with two different proposed sets of language for a CGR. And if you look in that bottom side, there's two options there. Basically, make the Silver Stake process a separate application, and to look closely at the fee process. And this option as a separate application process would include those folks who are currently in a waiting period. And if I can back up a little further, you may recall seeing in the past some dollar breakouts that were just estimates at the time from Don Sefton. In that first option, it was thought that that would be around $18,500 for programming. And then the second option was to make it a checkoff box on the application, and that one would exclude those in a waiting period, and just by design of the process, and that was estimated to be about $12,500. So if I can take you to the next page talks about just what we anticipate as the timelines. So the early part of October, we hope to have the language laid out for the two options. Maureen Hullinger is working that now. And we'll meet with our working group in early October. And the intent is, once we're satisfied with those two options, then we're going to go out to the cabs with the two options, because we thought it important that with two options, we wanted to have the cabs looking at it and the cabs making an eventual recommendation to you as the commission. Then the next line, the projected date of 5 December, that's when we're looking at the next commission meeting, and that's when we were counting on the CABs to have some recommendations to you for you to at least identify the desired option that we want out of that. And sometime shortly after that commission meeting, then we would go to LCB with the recommended option from the commission. And that process, as you're aware, takes about 30 days. So we anticipated their review, and any edit would take us into maybe the first or second week of January, depending on a holiday time for them. We then would look at that sometime in January just to make sure that what they come back with, if they've changed anything, which you saw on, for example, the CGR this morning, that we could expect to see that, and we just want to make sure we don't lose the intent on that. And then in the February or March meeting, based on the newly adopted schedule this morning, then we would go through the workshop process for the commission to refine that particular item, that particular requested option. So then on to the last page. Once we're to that point, then in the March or April time frame, we're showing February, March, it'd probably be the March or April time frame, then we would end up going back to LCB's committee, that subcommittee for review of regulations. And once we've got that back, that's when the programming would start and the associated testing that would go on with that. So we're just showing that as the spring and summertime. Of course, as we progress on this, we'll have more refined timeframes for you. And associated publication activity. And then I want to point out I've got a typo on that last line there for implement. We say March 2010. Of course, that's March 2011. So, again, the intent was to just give you an idea of where we are on timelines and to identify, those that have some roles and responsibilities with this.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted him to go through this process because we started thinking, well, boy, we could have this thing ready to go for this coming draw period. And obviously, when you lay it out and actually see how much time LCB and the time it takes to write the regulations and for your process to go on, it's really only going to be, wouldn't be ready even if we started today until 2011. So.
Yeah, one of the things that we're interested in, we're watching, even though we're on the phone, we're watching Chad's body language. He's a proponent for this, and of course he wants to see this move as quickly as possible, as do many folks, but he clearly understood that these steps here are all the required steps through the process, and I think he was pleased when we got to the point where we broke them into the options and to give the CABs the opportunity to look at those options and for the CABs to make recommendation to you, the commission, on which is the desired option to go with.
Thank you. Any questions by anybody on the commission? Commissioner Cavan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bob, just an observation, and it's not under your department, but it's certainly part of this whole process is somewhere along the line here, we want a calendar in. The commission has to make a quota, and we may want to just add that in so that we know when that
certainly
has to occur. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Rain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question in general about the law. After its passage, it was a multi-part law, and this is one segment of that law. And I just want to check with the DAGs how all that works, is we can go ahead and implement this section of the law despite anything else going on with the other sections of that law that was passed. That's the way this can work? We can go ahead and implement one portion of it. Glad I have a translator. Translates that into English.
My understanding is that there's 3 different programs that were laid out in the one law, so each one would proceed along its own track.
Each one is completely separate. They all proceed along their track, and they're relatively independent of each other.
Correct, other than they came from the same enabling legislation.
That was my understanding, but I wanted to hear it from one of you folks. Thank you.
Any other commission comments? Any comment from the audience on this? If not, thank you, Bob. The next item is the Upland Game Stamp Program.
Chairman, Commission meetings. For the record, I'm Dave Pulliam. I'm the Chief of our Habitat Division. And I guess there were a few questions on the Upland Game Stamp Program, and so I put together just a quick synopsis, a little history of it, and then I'd entertain any questions, I guess. In March of 04, 502.292 became effective. That authorized the $10 upland game bird stamp fee, or required it to hunt upland game birds, except turkeys. And as a result of that, we implemented that for that next season, and then we went to IFC to augment our budget to account for this program. One of the questions, if I understood right, was about the use of that funds for salary or such. The program itself has always included salary for a new crew in the southern Nevada area, and it began down here, and it's still down here, based on our inventory of maintenance needs for existing water developments, primarily for upland game type. And I think I may have these numbers a little bit, but even back in the 40s, Clark County put I think almost 400 water developments for quail down here, and in the 40s, quail hunting was one of the biggest economic impacts in Clark County. And that might not be the same today, but it certainly was back then. We have assumed responsibility for all those water developments, and many of them are in significant disrepair, as you can imagine. They were the old cement cistern type, and they've deteriorated as a result of alkaline soils, et cetera. So the effort actually began down here, where we're trying to catch up with those maintenance needs, and we have evaluated projects, we have abandoned projects and taken them out where they were not effective or meeting any kind of wildlife objective, and we have replaced many of those with new design, functional, low-maintenance units. To do that, we most effectively, we hired a crew down here to do that, and we paid their salary out of this, these upland game fees. A little bit more, maybe just a summation of the types of things we've accomplished with these funds are not just water developments for upland game, but we have completed a myriad of spring exclosures, meadow exclosures throughout the state, designed to enhance a lot of sage grouse, actually, habitat. About 8 of those ranging in size from about 700 to 800 acres down to a few that were just smaller 10-acre types of exclosures. We've supported through those fees the trap and transplant of chukar and quail. Often dependent on the success of Oregon at getting quail for us, and I think one of the years we didn't get any birds, but we've certainly funded that program out of these funds. We have implemented upland game food plots on some of our wildlife management areas, again with a big emphasis on guzzler maintenance and some new guzzler projects. I think we've put about 15, in the last 3 or 4 years, 15 complete rebuilds, new guzzlers, about 16 brand new guzzlers, over 775 inspections and minor maintenances of facilities. We've funded some studies, some sage-grouse studies on genetics and habitat use patterns. We have supported publications, a update of the Chucker Bulletin and the Sportsman's Journal that's been discussed by this group several times, and other habitat enhancement, a 400-acre pinyon juniper treatment, mainly in a sagebrush type where pinyon juniper is encroached, and we've taken out the pinyon juniper in hopes to reestablish a sagebrush community, mainly for sage-grouse, but also benefiting mule deer. But sage-grouse are the upland game connection there. I guess with that, I guess I'd just entertain any questions you may have had about the program.
I've got some questions.
You do?
Yep. At the last meeting, and I'm sure you read the minutes, I asked to get to me and the commission. I hadn't heard anything yet, but you were talking about the expenditure of labor out of this program, and you weren't doing it on the duck stamp program. And you said your interpretation of the intent of the legislation was to be able to spend it on labor. And my comment, I think, at the meeting was, where's the support for that statement?
Mm-hmm. Well, the intent, I guess the support is the work program that went to IFC that was approved in order to attain the authorization for expenditure of funds under the law, which does include salary. And I'm not sure that what you're quoting, that I understood it fully. We're not doing something with duck stamp, and we are.
Well, you're not using any duck stamp money for labor.
We haven't in the past historically used duck stamp for salaries. I don't think there's any prohibition against that, but traditionally, I've been in the department about 10 years now, and it's never been used for salary. So I think that's more a tradition than a requirement. But with upland game stamp, salaries were always a part of the proposed program, the approved program, and the legislative approved budget.
The reason I asked that question, because on, Senate Bill 420 that we passed in 2003, I went through all of that, and I was trying to see where it said that you could use the salary, the ducks or the upland game stamp fees for salary, and and my question was, can you put your own intent into a bill? If it isn't in there or spelled out, can you use it for salaries?
Well, I think, and I'll read you the way what the bill says, if you want that, and that is that the money must be used for the protection and propagation of upland game birds and for the acquisition, development, and preservation of habitats and upland game birds in Nevada. Right. And a part of the proposal that we have put forward for authorization through the Interim Finance Committee laid out a program of certain employees to accomplish those missions and their salary, travel, equipment, materials, et cetera, approved by IFC from year one all the way through this year now. And also, I might add, approved by the Commission every year we've proposed it. So it's been a part of the upland game stamp program since its inception that we would be funding crews in the field to get the work done.
I was just asking about when you said your interpretation of the intent of the bill, where that came from, that you could spend it for that. So you're saying that salaries can be taken out of it because the salaries are eating up half the proceeds of the. Actually,
if I may, our latest, the other thing about the program is we report accomplishments, detailed expenditures to the legislature every 2 years. The latest report, which I think everyone, or all of you except the new folks have received every 2 years, is that salary was about $126,000 and of a $292,000 program.
But it's going to be up to 180,000 next time, next year.
2010, let's see.
Federal funds.
160.
Yeah, salary is estimated to be 160,000 next year. This year, fiscal year 10. So 11, I think we're expecting about the same level. No. Well, I might add, if you want to know a little history back sometime, when our water development programs before the Upland Game Stamp they consisted of a grant, and this federal grant was a 75-25 split, Pittman-Robertson state dollars, and it funded wildfire restoration and other habitat enhancement projects, big game water development and upland game water development. Pittman-Robertson funds are limited and were stagnant at the time, and we had other programs that were suffering because of that. One of the reasons we tried to justify the conservation fee and the upland game fee at that time were to take those two programs, pull them out of the federal grant, and make Pittman-Robertson monies available for other programs that were suffering. So we redistributed Pittman-Robertson within the department. We run the Upland Game Stamp program independent of any federal aid. We run the conservation fee program independent of any federal aid.
So you can take the duck stamp, use that for labor too?
Yes, there's nothing that would prohibit that if we so chose. I approached it kind of as the new guy, even though I've been here about 10 years, but in the entire 10 years I've been here, duck stamp has never been used for salary. So we've just continued that. We do fund our wildlife management area folks that are managing these wetlands in the state of Nevada under a federal grant for that. We supplement a lot of the wetlands work we do both at our wildlife management areas and outside our wildlife management areas, but primarily in our wildlife management areas with duck stamp funding to fund site-specific projects.
And one other thing, you said when you're going to prepare this next time, you'd put down, we didn't have revenues received. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, and I think we was that the 09 report and 10? I think we have revenue received now, but yeah, we intend to make sure we do that. Okay. Not only revenues received, but balance forward revenues too, because we sometimes don't spend all that we actually have.
Well, that's in your budget, and I have the one from 9/18, and it says you've spent 14,000 of it year to date.
Yeah, I'm not sure which report you have, and I may not have every one of them in front of me here.
But your obligated reserve, 4458.
Yeah, obligated reserve.
Fund, yeah.
Okay. I don't have that report right in front of me, but yeah, it's our intent, and you and I talked about it before, about making sure we include revenues in our reports. Right. Revenues received, expenditures spent, accomplishments, et cetera.
Good. Any other questions, Benny? Commissioner Howe?
I've got one question. The Guzzler book. You print a Guzzler book. It's got like 1,500 Guzzlers now, as I recall.
Yeah, about 15 plus a few.
I remember when it was a half a dozen. It's a $40 book now. How many of them do you sell a year?
I'd have to refer to Kelly Clark, our conservation education chief. She handles all of the publications.
That's a statewide book then?
The statewide book, yeah. 40.
We used to have one for Clark County, and it was just a couple of pages back in the 60s. You know?
Yeah, yeah. Here, just tell me how many in all.
We sell probably about $30,000 or so. Just do the math. 30,000 divided by 40.
You're asking me to do the math? 700, about 750 to 800 issues sold a year.
Yeah, over the last 5 years, and that has dropped. We're not selling as many, and we're not going to be doing reprints until we have enough money, and then we'll do reprints out of the funds that we receive on the
And what is the cost of printing those? I mean, there's a...
The
difference between the actual cost of the book and the cost that we're requesting. There's about $27 cost on the book, and we sell them for $40, so that includes a $5 shipping fee. So.
Thank you.
Any public comment on this report? If not, thank you. Oh, step up.
For the record, Paul Dixon, I'd like to say, and back up where Charlie was, is guzzlers here in southern Nevada were, even when I moved here in '97, were few and far between. I mean, we've done a tremendous amount, and in the last 8 years' worth of drought down here, as a bird hunter, I can tell you if we didn't have the guzzler program and the people out there in the field putting stuff in and revamping stuff, we would not have birds in southern Nevada. So it's a tremendously important program, and I'm not quite sure why the commission's worried about where the funding's coming from to pay for the staff to do this, but if the bird hunters are paying a permit fee, as a bird hunter, I can tell you as a citizen, I think that that's money extremely well spent, and being out in the field here in southern Nevada, especially where we've had some large burns like in the Mormons, you know, 3 years ago we had a huge fire, 3 or 4 years ago, and the last 2 years I've been able to go out and limit in chukar and in quail in those mountains, and it's basically because we've had the guzzler projects, and it's only been in the last year we've seen the regrowth of the grasses and stuff after these fires, but it was pretty devastating, and without the guzzlers we wouldn't have any birds here. So thank you.
Commissioner Rain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just perhaps in the development of the next version of this document, you know, a little breakdown of how that $160,000 or whatever will be in the 2011, excuse me, you know, how that money is spent, maybe a page on, you know, where is it going, if it's broken down, broken down 10,000 of that labor is going to this project. Is that something in there to
actually
show that?
The publication or handout that you're looking at is specifically detailed to the Commission for approval of proposed projects for the next year. When we do the biennial report to the legislation, which each one of you get, actually we're to a stage now where we're doing itemized expenditures. And down to the point that a box of nuts and bolts is included in that. I mean, Mr. Claiborne had a considerable interest in that, and the last legislative report we submitted had pages of every purchase we made. And so salary is split up. I cannot say that we split salary up by individual projects. We could. That would just seem to be like we could split it up by total maintenance, total new projects, as far as salaries for our crews go, and that might be helpful. And in the legislative report, it is split up that way because we code that way. We can
somewhat more split up than it was. Not necessarily epoxy Kleenex, but something more broke down in a way that it might relieve some of the questions that come up about it.
Well, I would refer you to the legislative report. That's what I would suggest. That is a detailed cost accounting of it, including accomplishments. This publication is meant for your perusal of the specific projects that are being proposed for that next year. So,
and the next edition of that will come out of the legislative.
Well, this was you've just recently in June approved the fiscal year 10, and in June of 10 you'll approve the fiscal year 11 project. So you'll have this as support material for your commission meeting June 11 for this. The legislative report is due 5 days before the session convenes, and that we send out to each one of you also. So I would hope we aren't building more reports instead of getting stuff done on the ground, because that report does detail everything very specifically.
Is this the new one? Didn't the other one, we have a typo in there on number of new units to be built? Did this get corrected in this one?
Which?
Didn't you have in the other report 20 and it was 10 or something like that? Number of new water developments to be built? You've got 15 programmed in FY10?
Let me see. Materials. Approximately 20 units to be maintained, approximately 15 units to be built in southern Nevada.
You said that was in misprint and it's supposed to be 5, right? What, sort of 15?
No, I don't remember that. I'll have to check on that.
I remember scratching that out and made a note because
Yeah.
that was a correction. Approximately 5 units to be built. They're under projects, Upland Game Stamp Program FY10.
You got down there 15 units to be built, and I think that was a typo, was that? It should have been 5.
5, yes, yeah, that is a typo, yeah. The level Bs are the project-specific reports that accompany that, and it's 5. Should have been 5.
Okay.
And like I've said before in some of these briefings, our main emphasis now with 1,500 and some guzzlers statewide is maintenance. Yeah. And we have a 2-person crew down here and a 2-person crew, 3-person crew in Winnemucca that are, the crew down here is focusing on upland game. The crew up there focuses on big game and upland game, and maintenance alone is eating our lunch. And I think to protect our investment, the maintenance is what we have emphasized the last 2 or 3 years in our program. So we're working with partners and all of that on new developments, but we're really emphasizing the need to get on top of maintenance on all of our where needed. And that's why you see well over 50% of our guzzlers have been inventoried. And at that time of inventory, we're using helicopters, and they stop and they fix little stuff that they can fix, or they mark, we need to revisit this with a rebuild or whatever, and they get those things accomplished.
No, I think, and the commission thinks it's an excellent program. It's just, they want to make sure, just looking to see how many we're putting on the ground for the dollars we're spending, but it's really an outstanding program.
Yeah. Well, I'd emphasize the other aspects. It's not just water development that we do here, so.
Right. Commissioner Capurro?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a big believer in the Guzzler program. I've worked on a few, and I have seen there are areas where we definitely would not have animals without those Guzzler projects. And also the designs clearly of the projects have changed over the years to where they're much more able to withstand long periods of time without maintenance. Mm-hmm. So it's a program that I think is extremely important for the, in any of the areas such as where you're planning on transplanting animals and that, without adequate water, you've got a real problem. So again, I congratulate you on that. I'm amazed that there are 1,500 of them, though. I want to get a copy of that book, so I'll
$40.
talk to you about it. I'll pay it.
Well, thank you for the comment. I would say that, our folks in the field are the ones that have modified designs, coming up with positive designs. They're the ones that need the credit and deserve the credit. They do a wonderful job, and I'm not going to stand up here and tell you we haven't had our problems. We've had some personnel issues, not personal issues, but people taking other jobs and leaving. So we've had vacancies in these crews over the last couple of years that have impacted our productivity. But we're hoping we're solving some of that, and we got some full crews now, and we hope we can keep them on for an extended period of time and get even more done. So thank you very much. But I'd give the field folks the biggest bulk of the credit for sure.
Did you buy your Polaris?
We're working on it, and I told them that I would get your notes from the meeting in Fallon, wasn't it? Or no, Lovelock, and make sure they check the prices.
You get a special price.
Good. We'll mention your name.
No, it's the state government agency,
okay.
Not me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is litigation report. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You should all have a copy of the litigation report. I know it should be in your packet, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any changes from last time?
I don't think so, but I wasn't at the last meeting, so I'm operating off memory from there.
Commissioner Cavan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you maybe just give us an overview of number one, the Walker River Paiute Tribe and the Walker River Irrigation District? I don't really understand the last line. Confidential settlement discussions have ended and litigation strategies are being developed. Can you tell me what where that's at in non-legal terms?
My understanding of that is limited because that case is being handled by New Win up north. But my understanding is that they were in a phase where they were attempting to settle the matter, and so they had somewhat pushed any litigation activities to the back burner to try to see if they could settle it before any expenditures were made on that front. The settlement discussions have broken down to the point where it's not even being contemplated at this point that it settle, and so they are moving forward with litigation. I realize that's kind of just an expansion of what's on the page, but that's my understanding of what has occurred. From that being resolved, yes. It would have resolved faster had it settled. Now that it hasn't, it will take longer, correct?
That's correct. I was involved in that stuff, so that's a pretty good thumbnail of what happened.
Any other commissioner have a question? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
The last item for today is going to be department activities. Secretary Mayor.
Well, once again, we're trying to provide these leadership team notes as quickly, we're trying to get them out as quickly as we can. Again, if you have any questions or thoughts or additions or things we could do better or differently, it's certainly open to that. I hope that's providing you kind of more of a running tally of the things that are going on within the department. We've been trying to focus, when we got the management team together, we decided that our weekly meetings will be split on kind of an every other week basis on even weeks. For instance, we'll kind of do the round robin to share what's going on in the divisions and things that we all need to be working on together. And then on the odd weeks, we'll take certain topics, problems, and focus specifically on that. For instance, this last week we focused specifically on urban wildlife problems because, as you know, the general fund dollars were cut, and what we had to do is reduce our response to urban wildlife way back. In Clark County, as an example, they just sent us a letter saying that they're going to do no wildlife. So we're trying to figure out how to address that. I have a letter going to the county relative to that, what we can and can't do. We're really focusing in that particular arena on threat to human or public safety. So we have a public safety issue we'll roll. But if it's general wildlife questions, I've got a raccoon that's tearing up my garden or my lawn or this and that. We're going to expand our website, train some of our folks that when the calls come in to try to either have canned responses or direct them to our website to answer. So those are the kinds of things we're going to focus on every other week. And we have no loss for having topics like that to talk about. How do you implement the furlough process? It's been an absolute nightmare for supervisors across the state and all agencies to try to deal with those kinds of issues. You have a aircraft helicopter program to be collecting data. How do you do that with a furlough? Do you just stop? I don't think so. So there's a lot of management things that are going on that we're trying to deal with. So I think we're going to be more productive as we move into the future. The other thing I'll mention to you, the new deputy director will be reporting on Monday. Pat Cates, and the first time you get to meet him will be in December, and I'm really looking forward to having someone there to focus on the administrative and fiscal sides of the House specifically. And then Rich will be moving over to work with the programs, the divisions, what's going on the ground, what do the field people need, how do we get that stuff accomplished, and then working with Pat on the fiscal side of it. So we'll certainly hook the Finance Committee up with Pat and Dave. So we'll finally have a complete shop. What we started doing way back 3 years ago, it takes time to get these things into place, but I'm really looking forward to that as well. So if you have any suggestions or questions on the report or things that we could do better, I'm certainly open to that. Just give me a call, send me an email, or let me know now.
You won't have anything to do.
Me? My stress load will kind of come down a little bit.
Anybody have any questions? If not, thank you. Well, we're at the end of today's agenda, and I don't see anything we want to move from tomorrow over to the day, I don't think. We don't have any time specific, but do you know if Utah is going to have somebody here?
I don't believe so.
There's a.
I don't believe, no. I don't believe
Is
so.
there any items you want to move from tomorrow into the day?
Cox told me that this morning, someone was coming.
Huh?
Can we move something?
Well, yeah.
There's a gentleman from Utah Division of Wildlife who is on his way to Las Vegas today, who will be here to attend the meeting.
Yeah, then we better not take that. Anyone see anything on the agenda that we can put today? We can't put the action items. So I think we've got about everything we can do. Commissioner Capurro?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we, I'd like to save this guy a trip if he's not coming here for something else, because I think we're probably ready to act on it if, based upon the comments we got from the cabs and our own research.
Thanks, Commissioner. Unfortunately, with their travel requirements in Utah, he had to drive and he was based in Salt Lake City, so he'll be here at some point today. But I will give him a call. I can go and give him a call right now if you'd like.
Here, what? Hearing none, I'll have accept a motion to adjourn. To second. All for that, say aye. Adjourn. Till 8:30 tomorrow morning. I gotta go pee anyway.